Hello, everybody. Welcome back to World Hoppers. I hope everybody had a good end of 2021. We're starting the new year off by chatting about the Wheel of Time TV show, which has been kind of a controversial ending for a lot of people. And we're going into heavy spoilers, so just be warned. There's no non-spoiler section. We're just going to jump right into it. Before we does anybody want to say anything about their thoughts for the first 4 episodes? Because Jade, you weren't here for the conversation for the first 4. Did you want to let people know what you think of it?
I guess I'll just say like what I thought of the first 4 episodes. Basically, so before when I had seen just like the trailers and stuff, if you don't know, I'm a huge fan of the books. I grew up reading this series and I've read like the first half of the series multiple times. Huge fan of the books. And so I was very excited about the adaptation, the TV show. And I had said in many a video, like reaction to trailers and stuff, that I'm pretty sure I'm going to love it no matter what. And that didn't totally end up being true. I kind of regret saying that. We'll talk more about it, but I didn't hate it. But the first episode, I was like, what have I gotten myself into? And the first 4, though, I enjoyed each episode progressively more than the last. So like the 4th one, I really liked, and I'll leave it at that. So we'll talk more about the rest of the season.
And then the rest happened.
So Jade, we have a chat on here and there. We've talked about the show. We've kind of been saving a lot of our thoughts for today. But one thing Jade brought up is she saw a poll. So if anybody in the comments also wants to answer this, would you have rather not had an adaptation at all? Or are you at least happy enough that you got to see it? So I'll let all of you go around and answer. We'll go in order and Angela can kick it off.
Okay, just a reminder, if you haven't seen like part 1 of this video, I have very low stakes with this IP. I just started reading The Wheel of Time 2 years ago. I'm only on book 8, I think, or I finished book 8. I don't know. What is Path of Daggers? It's in there. I read that. So, I mean, I think I am glad there's an adaptation because I am always pro high-budget fantasy adaptations because I love fantasy as a genre, and I'm always happy when they're getting money. I always want them to be good, and I don't think this is the worst. Like, I feel like Netflix has had some really bad fantasy adaptations that are worse than this, but it's not my favorite, so I don't know. I guess if there wasn't an adaptation, I would have never read the books, and there's a part of me that wonders what would happen if I had that time back. So I don't know.
But then you would have missed all the rants.
I know. Like, it's not all been bad. I'm not actually here to say that I hate the show or the book series. It's more just like I literally picked up the books because I knew the show was coming. But in general, I'm always pro my favorite genre getting visual media. Although I just feel like we should lean into animated adaptations. Like, why don't we do that? One of my favorite fantasy things is Avatar: The Last Airbender, and that's just animated, and I'm totally
animations for children.
So
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, Mistborn animated, I'm all here for it if it ever happens.
That would be so
Mistborn is for children.
I've mentioned a few times that I would be down for animated, and some people disagree, Jess. But there are a couple times whenever I say I feel like Wheel of Time would be great animated because there's just so much material, and then it would be easier, and there's so much magic too, and it's hard to, I think, do magic well in live action. But a lot of people are in agreement, but a couple of people who aren't in agreement get really mad about it. They're like, that's why he keeps saying it's for children, because people are like,
people get really mad.
Have you guys seen Into the Spider-Verse? Can you see what animation can
That's
be
what
now?
Sean, yeah, you guys are on the same wavelength, because Sean said the same thing, that he thought after Into the Spider-Verse that we would start seeing more. Also, I haven't Arcane. Have any of you watched
Arcane is
it?
amazing.
I need to.
I've heard of it.
I have to accept I'll be watching that by myself because
the vast majority of people that like don't even know League of Legends watched Arcane and they were just like, wow, that was literally one of the best animated series I've ever seen.
It's one of the best things ever I've seen. And the first episode, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I liked it. We thought we liked it. And then after that, if you can make it to the end of the first 3 episodes and not be hooked, then maybe it's not going to be for you. But those first 3 episodes were like better than so many adaptations we've been getting in their entirety. But either way, we're not here to talk about Arcane. Just, I agree with your point, Angela, about
I also just think your budget can go further. You can have more episodes. Like, I feel like a lot of our complaints that we're going to get into would be solved with more time, and you can get more time, and you don't have to be like, this special effect looked bad if it's animated.
I do want to add, I think the budget for Arcane was more than the budget for Wheel of Time. But
Wheel of Time didn't have a small budget either.
Right. And the animation style in Arcane is over the top. I mean, it's incredible. And not everything has to look like that to be good. I mean, I'll take Castlevania. I'll take Castlevania level animation. I know it's not, everybody's favorite. But anyway, sorry.
So I'll stop.
Wait, I have a
That's my
question for
tangent
Angela.
of I don't have a horse in this race, and I'm okay that it exists.
Angela, don't you have a family member who really loves Wheel of Time?
Yeah, and I think he's going to watch it, but he accidentally asked me the other day, how is the new Lord of the Rings adaptation? So that tells you where his brain's been.
That's really funny.
I did tell him the major spoilers for the first episode, and he's like, what? He was like,
I can imagine.
But I mean,
yeah, I was just wondering because you were saying you probably never would have picked up the series if it wasn't for that. But I didn't know, I knew you had a family member who's really into it. I didn't know if they would ever be able to.
He's not he's read it more than you have because he's been reading. I mean, he's been reading it since the 90s over and over again. But he was really upset with the slog reading it in real time. And I don't think ever recovered as a fan.
So a reminder. So since we've gone off a little bit, and then getting back to now, Stephanie, would you have rather there was no adaptation at all, or are you pleased that we have one?
I'm the same pretty much as Angela. I'm glad for more fantasy adaptations, and overall, I was glad this one had one. But again, this isn't my favorite series, so I wouldn't have been hurt by it if there wasn't an adaptation. But overall, I'm happy.
Yeah. I would say that I'm happy there's an adaptation because I didn't think it was so terrible. And adaptations always bring new fans, right? Like the exposure that the series gets. I mean, it's a really well-known series, especially among older readers because it's been around for a long time. But bringing in a newer generation of fantasy readers, I think is really cool. And I don't know. For me, I wish somehow I had watched the adaptation. I know I'm weird, but I always enjoy reading after watching. So having to do it the opposite, I think is part of the reason why I'm struggling with the adaptation. And I wish I wish I could be one of these new people who's just now discovering Wheel of Time and watching the adaptation and be like, oh, this is cool. Let me go read the books because I think I would really enjoy that, which really doesn't answer the question. But basically, yeah, I'm glad that it happened because it's not so terrible that I hate it, and it's bringing new people to the fandom.
Jess.
I mean, I've only read the first 3 books and only once. So I'm not a, hardcore book fan or anything. And I also love fantasy on screen. However, after I saw Spider-Man Far From Home, No Way Home, whichever,
it's
tonight.
No Way Home.
And after seeing that cinematic visual masterpiece, that feast for my eyes, all of that money from Disney. And then I think about what I watched with Wheel of Time, and I watched a ton of videos about Rafe's plan and all people's different thoughts, people who read the books, people who didn't. And I just don't feel like it will in total be done well in the limited amount of time and money, because $10 million is a lot of money, but it's not enough for the amount of magic and stuff in Wheel of Time. So I actually think I wish it hadn't been adapted, or at least not with Amazon, because they need a way bigger budget and they need more time. So if it was Disney adapting it, those billions of dollars, or if Jeff would not take his space trip so that they could have a little bit more money, so boy Lord wouldn't be out here looking raggedy, then I would be about the adaptation. But with this network, with Rafe, no. I think it's terrible.
Isn't the Amazon Lord of the Rings outrageously
400 something million, right?
Yeah, I mean, they were they gave it all there.
Yeah, I think it was nah.
Yeah, and then
understand at the beginning, but it's it's so ambitious, and I don't think it's gonna deter adaptations, but maybe some people who maybe don't read fantasy or watch a lot of it, I don't know. I read the book, so I can't have a non-reader opinion. But to me, from what I've seen, I don't think it's like a great season to reel someone into fantasy, like watching TV, in my opinion. I don't know, but
I mean,
they might have had great numbers.
I kind of disagree a little, just because like I'm like Jade, and I kind of wish I hadn't read it, because I was always having a lot of fun until I remembered I knew stuff from the book, so I already knew the main like check-in points. Like I could only be so stressed because I know who like has to make it to a certain point, and like one of my biggest complaints in episode 8 is they pretend to evoke emotion that isn't real and stuff like that. So I think
I will say we do have a question for, do you think the show is good for non-readers? So I might
okay,
prolong because I have thoughts on that too. I want to make sure Alex gets to say his answer.
Geez, everybody. I think in general, I'm glad that it exists. I did not like it by the end of it. And I went from like, I didn't like it to like, it got kind of good. And then it kind of got really bad. Which also, it seemed like the CGI budget like stopped working after 6 episodes, because by the end of it, the budget was god awful and it looked like Legend of the Seeker. I'm happy that it exists, because it wasn't so bad that like I think it destroys the Wheel of Time or anything like that. But it was like a perfectly like okay show overall for me, that like it wasn't offensive. It wasn't so bad that I was like, I'm so upset that I watched it, but I'm also not like, yes, this is the Wheel of Time, because it's really not. Like they're gonna write it off as it's another turning of the wheel, so we can just change everything, and they are. So it's not a good adaptation anymore at all, honestly. But it's what we have, and I think there's enough that you could make it better in the following seasons. But I think they need to get away from the 8 episode seasons. They need to get like 10 plus, because you're already like right off the jump doing the mistake that the ending of Game of Thrones did, where you're trying to cram too much into too little. And Wheel of Time is too, even streamlining the show, like from the books, it's too much to do in 8 episodes. Like so much of it just felt rushed. So much of like the scenes felt literally cut off. Like there should have been more happening, and they're just like, nope, we got to go to the next thing. And so yeah, in general, I'm glad that it exists. I'd rather have this than nothing, I guess. But I also understand the disappointment in book readers, because I didn't have high hopes going into it until like the final trailers came out, and then I was like, okay, this actually looks kind of cool. And then I watched it, and I was just like, well, here we go. Who knows?
Yeah, it's for sure more inspired by than an adaptation.
Yeah, the adaptation is very loose.
What about you, Sean?
Well, the series is, you can't adapt it. It's unadaptable. So like I have a mix of emotions. There's a small 13 or 14-year-old version of Sean who like is just really happy seeing those characters on TV. Like I don't know, for whatever reason, Rand being moody is like, I love every scene where Rand is upset. I'm like, yes, get really upset, Rand. I think the thing is, since you can't adapt it, it has to be different to some degree. But it at some point it's just not good TV, and like it's not bad, but also it's not good either. I mean, like I
just
think
kind of
like,
exists.
Yeah, I think of like really good, like HBO with Game of Thrones. HBO has like a track record of really good shows. Like, and Amazon, I don't know if it has that track record. I don't know if, I don't want to just start insulting the writers and everything, but I don't know if they have like a team of people who are the best. Like, I think if you had like a team of people who are like the best of the best, we have to change lots of things, but we're going to make great TV. I would have been down for great TV. I just don't think it's there. It's like okay TV. I'll watch it. Yeah. But I'm not like, yeah.
To Alex,
I definitely agree with that. Like you could have taken this exact show and made it better than it was presented to us. Because I think there's a lot of things wrong with it. And it's not even like the acting is good for the most part. Like some of the characters are great. Some of the actors get nothing to do from the script. So like
Right.
that's a problem. And then there
Yeah.
are just like budget things that were kind of weird where certain things just didn't like work very well, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
To your point, Alex, of how they sometimes felt the scenes themselves felt just
Mhm.
cut off. I think maybe I'm wrong, but I think they literally were because I think we've discussed before that first episode was
Yeah.
they recorded 90 minutes to 2 hours or something like that, and then they made them trim it. And that I don't know how logistically that could have possibly ever happened because you know that part of the budget had to go to scenes that never even ended up making it to screen, and that money could have gone toward something else. So how do you film all of that extra material and then have Amazon be like, no, you'd think that you wouldn't have done that if you
Yeah.
knew you weren't going to be able to show it. And honestly, I wish Amazon would have let them show the full length. Why not? It's a streaming service. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's,
People will
it's not,
watch it.
Watch it.
yeah,
People will
yeah.
watch
So,
anything.
and I mean, or just break it up and do more episodes. Like I just think the 8 episode when Sean was saying it's not adaptable. I think in this format, in this structure of 8 episodes a season, with this much material, I just don't think you could possibly make it the same. So to answer the question, for my take on it, I think if I was a hardcore fan, my answer would have actually been no. I would have rather not have had because I'm trying to imagine my favorite series and them changing it to that point. And I personally am like a phrase that Alex has said off here, but he's said aggressively mediocre, and we all have use that term now. And like Sean said, it kind of, I mean, it wasn't awful, but it wasn't my favorite. I think if I was a book fan, I would have been really frustrated because you just can't remove it from your mind, I think, if you have that already.
It's hard.
Yeah, but
I'm a book fan. It's not my favorite series by any stretch, but like it's up there as far as like overall the series is great and the good outweighs the bad. But you can't help but watch it and be like, that's not right. And then but like some things like you can understand adaptation, like certain things are going to translate, or you have to change certain things, or like certain characters can change. But there's other changes that were made that you're just like, that's just like not a good choice. Like, why would you change that?
And
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to jump in to say with the concept of is it a good show for non-readers? I think there's different groups in non-readers. I read a lot of fantasy, but I haven't read Wheel of Time non-readers. And then there's my mom type of non-readers who are like, she would probably watch it and be like, you kids like that stuff. It's okay. Like her frame of reference is Lord of the Rings. And she'd be like, I feel like Lord of the Rings was better. You know, like she wouldn't think this was a step up, and it's made how many years later. And it's a show. So you have multiple seasons, multiple episodes. It's not just one long movie. But I think that, my answer to this is I don't actually think so. I think for a lot of the season, people were saying that it's been great for non-readers. But I think I might agree with Jess and kind of Sean talking about if it had been amazing television but was very different, I think you could argue yes. But I just don't see this show being the fantasy show to get non-readers who maybe only sometimes take a try with fantasy. I don't think this is the show that I would point to and say like fantasy's actually, it can be really great television. And I feel really bad saying that, but it just wasn't outstanding in my opinion. It was, as we've talked about before, I would more likely point someone to Arcane than I would to this.
Yes, absolutely.
I think it was way too confusing.
Yeah, I think for me, a non-fantasy, like a person who reads fantasy and sci-fi and speculative fiction, but hasn't read Wheel of Time, I think this is more palatable. But then again, it actually has like a 7.3 out of 10. Mm-hmm. So, and not all of those people are reading fantasy because fantasy is like the least read genre.
What is that from, Angela?
It's from It's from IMDb, and it's from 63,000 rating, 63,781.
At least at one point during the season, it was like Amazon's like most watched original show. I don't know.
Yeah,
and it beat Hawkeye one week as the most streamed show.
I looked into Alex, the thing you're talking about. I think it was for it wasn't like the most ever. It was for the amount of like a first season after this many episodes. Like it was like a kind of
Gotcha.
specific amount. But yeah, that's a good thing to bring up. I think the reason, Angela, I was asking is because on Rotten Tomatoes, I saw like the 20 currently most popular shows. And then as far as like the Rotten Tomatoes ratings, it was the third lowest of 20. So I was just curious because it's interesting how from one website to the next.
Or there's, like,
Yeah, no, I mean, this one, I just
rating.
know it has a sample
Most
size of about
people.
64,000 people who tend to rate things on IMDb.
Yeah.
And
Right.
people who
Yeah.
tend to rate
Right.
things, I don't know, when people rate things, they tend to have very strong opinions one way or the other, or they're just like very avid raters, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's probably better than Rotten Tomatoes anyway to gauge.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that supports what we're saying. Like, that's a very average score. That's not a score of a bad show or a great show. That's just a show that didn't upset
I
people.
think 7 is above what I mean, or at least above what I would think. I don't know, but also everyone looks or watches TV different. Like in our first chat, when you were talking about, like Angela's like, I'm not zoning in on all these things. I didn't notice the fight scene, or I didn't notice the CGI look like this, where I tend to look at things like that because I have a friend who hasn't watched a lot of fantasy adaptations, but some, and she was watching it and we would talk about it and I'm like, how did you not know? She was like, I don't know, I didn't see that, I liked it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, interesting. So there are some people who I guess who don't pay attention to those things, or to me I'm just like, I don't feel like the story or the way they wrote it wasn't that great to make up for the lack of how I thought it looked.
Yeah.
Well, Stephanie, you just like binged 4 episodes last night, and I remember you telling us the play-by-plays. You were having fun until
I had fun until the last one.
That's what a lot of people have said, though, is that like
Yeah.
episodes 4 and 6 are considered like the best ones. People kind of like 7 mostly, and then 8 is like everyone kind of got mad.
this is literally
Yeah.
the books and Wheel of Time. We've just described how people
Yeah.
feel about
Yeah.
the books and the
But
episodes.
actually,
What's funny
true.
though is like
Yeah.
I've heard from so many people that like don't like the ending of Eye of the World that the show made the ending of Eye of the World look good. So I'm like, that's not
I've seen
that's
that.
not good.
I've seen that.
No, because
expressed
that ending was a mess.
It is,
It just,
and they made it
I-
even less climactic. Like it was just like
What
Yeah.
happened in episode 7? I'm starting to like forget.
They blend
what happened in episode 7.
Episode
What
7.
happened?
Wait. I can tell you what happened in episode 7 because I had lots of like
Was that
thoughts.
the CW moment between the characters when they
Yes.
were arguing?
I was
Oh,
so frustrated by that scene. And I have to say,
And
I don't know if
the
you-
forced like almost love triangle that they tried to.
Yes,
Yeah.
wait, hold on though. I have to say, so the scene where they're in the ways and like it's whispering to them like their darkest thoughts. Did you know it whispers to Perrin, you killed her because
Yeah.
you love another?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, that's so dumb. That made it even dumber to me. Like I hated that.
I don't know why they would even write that in because that's
No, because I
That's
saw
weird.
theories that his wife was a dark friend, and maybe they're gonna do that in future seasons. I don't know, but
there's not enough character there for her to be anybody. But
but like they thought she was a dark friend because they thought it looked like she was actually going after Perrin in the
Mhm.
fight scene in episode 1 or whatever. And I'm like, so really all of the tension between them came down to like Perrin had the hots for Egwene. Why? We already
that
added a
was
wife.
terrible.
And then you made this like awkwardness between them because apparently he likes Egwene. And I'm like, you're making Perrin less likable.
I will
He's
say,
like-
in
I
Eye
mean,
of
he's
the
like
World,
the
he
most
kind of
likable
does.
He
character.
does kind of an Eye of the World.
But in Eye of the World, he does have a crush on Egwene.
Because
Well,
to
I
me,
I don't remember that.
It's not a very well-developed crush. What crush is in Wheel of Time? He literally
What romance is.
Like
Right.
if you give him a wife and
Yeah.
then you make it, I'm like, he needs to be over his crush if he was married. Like I'm just
yeah.
Or he's over
That's-
his wife's death really
yeah,
quick.
or exactly.
He's
Like
I
now
mean, it kind of was. He didn't really
Yeah,
say
he
anything
just
about it.
left.
now
that
all the
day,
scenes,
so-
like the part where he puts his arm around Egwene before they run
Mhm.
into the Tinkers, that part to me was initially he's scared to like be close to another person because he's like struggling with what happened and the violence and whatever. And now it's like, well, my wife only recently died a few days ago, and this is the girl I love, which I'm like, now I can't stand Perrin.
And
Sorry.
and somehow Nynaeve knew this, which is kind of
never shown or
Not
talked about.
Never expressed. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Sorry.
she also notices Moraine's tell, which we'll never know. So, you know.
Okay.
Angela, you two really
Dude,
are on.
I lost my mind when she was like, actually, I wasn't tracking you. I was tracking Moraine. He is a tell. Like, what? Did she like move her legs in an odd way? Like, how can you possibly know
So that goes back to like
who you're tracking?
the actors are doing what they can with the script. But like this, I don't think the script was good. I feel like that's like editing choices where they just like didn't give us information when they should have, or they ended scenes literally too early where there should have been these other things that we see.
I just have to add really quick to that part. Right before Lan, she says, "Are you going to go after her?" And Lan's like, "She masked the bond. She doesn't want me to go after
just
her.
finds
So
her
I'm going to respect her wishes, basically, right?" And then Nynaeve's like, "I mean, I can tell you how to find her, though." And then he's like, "Okay." And I'm like, so was it that you wanted to respect her wishes and not go after her, or is it that you literally couldn't and you needed to know the tell? I
don't think anyone watched this back. I'm like, once you edited it, this is what happens to me when I make a YouTube video and I don't watch it back. There's sometimes something I missed. They need to sit down and watch these consecutively because they'd be like, oh, we cut that part off and that character disappeared for an episode.
You go back and you watch your edit and there's just like gaps when you're not doing anything. You're like, hold on.
Yes. They're just like,
I do want to give them like a little bit of grace because it does feel like, and you shouldn't feel like this, they should be more professional, but it feels like they were like, oh man, a whole character that we had in these scenes is no longer in these scenes.
You can
with what
definitely
happened
feel
with
that,
Matt.
too.
Like, and they had to write around it and remove things. Like,
or I'm talking about Loyal. Like he just
I know, I
disappears.
didn't like that, but I think that's because they redid that episode. Like that episode.
Yeah, because so that was episode 8, right? When they clearly shoehorned in Perrin where it should have been Matt, and then Loyal is just randomly in the room getting stabbed by Pattinson. I'm like, why is that even happening?
Because he wasn't in episode 7, right? Loyal.
After the waves, it's just like
he's just not there.
No, I think they redid 7 and 8 when they were like, oh darn, we don't have Matt. Because they probably had some plans for him.
I'm sure they did.
I have a question. So Matt is pivotal to the series. They recast him.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be a different actor anyways. What's the point of not having him finish the season? Like, why is it like,
I
if
don't
you're not
know.
going back for season 2, you're not doing the last 2 episodes. Like, I don't really understand what it's not like we're going to be like, oh, he wasn't in the last 2
other
episodes,
shows have done it before where they just changed. I just watched the Matrix movies. They changed who acted the Oracle, and actually, that's not a good example because
they've been doing it for years though, because they did that on Bewitched.
They do it all the time.
They do it all the time. You don't have to have an explanation.
Episode to episode,
it's
all
like,
of a sudden,
okay, there's a new actor.
But I wonder, did they have those 2 episodes completely filmed before whatever stopped the actor from being able to act?
What we don't know.
We don't know, right?
Maybe that's the answer. But I guess if they had filmed it, I'm like, I don't understand it. So maybe he had already left.
Whatever happened, they must have had to have changed on the fly, because as soon as it was episode 6 was the last one he was actually in, right? When they go into the ways. Yeah. And he's just not going with them. And I was like, oh shit, did they just write him out then and there? Like he's just done. And
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I've heard that they reshot that scene. So did they bring him back to reshoot that scene? Because if he was willing to reshoot that scene, I don't know the logistics.
Maybe they just knew he was leaving.
I mean, I guess I'm not 100% sure, but what I have gathered is they had shot all the way through episode 6 or whatever that episode is where he doesn't follow them.
Yep.
And then they had a long break because of the COVID lockdown. And then he didn't come back after the break. And so they had filmed the last 2 episodes without him and had to like refilm parts of the previous episode.
Why didn't they just and I feel bad. This is such a difficult thing for the show to have to do.
Right.
I understand that. But I'm wondering, how long was the break? And I hate to sound dismissive of the struggle here, but why didn't they recast someone that could shoot in those last 2 episodes then? And like, I wouldn't have even cared if like in the episode recap right before they're like, just so you know, there's a different actor playing Matt. Like,
because we already knew that before the show even aired, that he had already been recast. So it's like, no one really would have batted an eye. It's like you would have been like, all right, well, if he got recast.
I feel like
I totally agree. I think
we
that
want
they
this
should have
show
just
out. this timeline no matter what, even if we have to cut corners and go, which, you know, I don't know what behind the scenes, if they had contracts, things had to be out at a certain time or something. It just seems really rushed that they just like looked over things that you think they would catch in like final revision or something.
And
I don't know. I'm not a film.
I'm with you. And I don't want to even, you know, I think it's very unfair that so much blame has been placed on Rafe. It's just he's the person for everybody to be like, this is all your fault. I don't know. It's
I think
know
it's
what
very
things-
fair, strictly because if you read anything from Sanderson and how like Rafe ultimately has the say of like what goes into the show, Rafe is choosing to like these issues we just talked about, like that's out of his control. What
Yeah.
he's choosing to structure the story around is ultimately his choice. And if he's not going to listen to Brandon Sanderson, who's saying like, because Sanderson's being the nice guy of like, I'm not going to come out and crap on the show, but like, there's definitely things I don't agree with that Rafe wanted to do. Like, duh.
I also wonder, like, I mean, Harriet McDougal is involved, but like, how come she doesn't have the last say and stuff? I don't know.
Yeah, I think we'll get into that in just a sec with Sanderson's add-ins, and some of his Reddit comments are interesting. But I guess I more mean some of the stuff, like they gave him what honestly probably wasn't a big enough budget for just how epic they seem. It seemed like Amazon handed him this amount of money with only 8 episodes and was like, give us our Game of Thrones. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I guess this is where I'm being snobby, I guess. But like with good writing, you can do a good show with
on a lower budget.
I mean, there's plenty of movies that don't, or TV shows that don't have giant budgets where you're like, okay, the special effects are bad, but like the writing is so engrossing, and I just feel like it just seemed inexperienced. It just seems like it
was bad.
I mean more for
Lorraine's lines were so like.
I have so many thoughts on that too. I just mean more like Stress was bringing up, you know, like the amount of time it seems like they got to look over things or some of the cuts they had to make. Timeline wise, if you have this awful situation of this actor getting had to leave for whatever reasons, and you're trying to figure out what to do about that. I mean, we get things delayed all the time, and there's so much with COVID. I feel like people would be fairly forgiving if we had to wait a little longer. And I don't know if that was just Amazon not wanting to wait. I guess that's what I was getting.
Probably. It was probably a contract thing. It was probably them being pushy. It was probably like, look, we need to get this out. Like, we can't delay this any longer.
It's so ridiculous. From their game failure.
But as far as the writing, I mean, I'm with Sean. I think I could be very forgiving of things not looking great if it was like absolutely amazing writing. But some of the lines, like when they're going into the ways and Moraine has her like the wheel weaves as the wheel wills line, but she's like facing the ways and whispering it kind of sort of, and you're like, who are you talking to? You're just saying this cool line.
That's just a nod to the book
I know,
readers, basically.
That didn't bother me whatsoever. That is not on my list.
There's so many moments where like they have these cool lines that I'm like, what is this line? Like it feels like it's almost like this is in the books, so I'm gonna put it in the show, but it doesn't really work in this scene. Kinds of lines.
There definitely is some of that.
They're trying to get a tagline. They're trying to get something quotable, like I drink wine and I know things. Like you can't manufacture that. It just has to be a line, and then the viewer is like, oh, and everyone starts saying that. But again, everyone's like, don't
can't make that happen.
The problem is they're trying
my
to
issue with
the
they are. My issue with the dialogue is more so that like if you're not one of the main characters, I feel like they were like all the like other characters were pretty awful in most of the scenes, like especially like very noticeable in episode 8. Like everything leading up to the battle was like really cringe-worthy dialogue, like trying to make it feel epic and like we're about to go to war, and it never felt good to me. Like it was the dialogue felt off. I
didn't notice any of that. The dialogue seemed fine to me.
The lighting and like the costuming, everything just like felt cheap in that episode for whatever reason. And like when they're trying to like build up this battle, I was like, this feels like it should be Helm's Deep, but it sucks. It's like if Helm's Deep wasn't good, this is what we would get. It's kind of like because go back and watch Helm's Deep, like watch watch like the build up to that
From
and-
20 years ago.
right, but like the whole like where's the horse and the rider, like that whole speech going into it and the music and like everything feels like it's building up to this
It's like
crescendo.
the orcs. They
And then
look
in this,
better than the Trollocs.
in this, it was just the two like the brother and sister, and she's just like yelling at everybody and like putting on golden armor, and I was like, none of this feels cool at all. Like, I don't know, maybe it's
And
just
well,
me,
since you're
but-
complaining about the battle, I'm going to extend it to my one big, like, I haven't cared about a lot of changes from the books to the show, but my big one is, I mean, I only recently learned how linking works in like book 7, but I know how linking works now, and it's not like that.
Nope.
Yeah.
I said that to my husband. I was like, it is not that easy. And Justin was like, that's not an
Join me.
important
You
change.
can't do it if you were just a novice at the tower for like a minute.
Yeah.
Right?
That's not how it works. It's
So that's-
about consent,
Somebody-
and I hate everything.
I totally
Jake,
complained
if
about
you-
that, and my husband was like, that's not a big deal, Jade. Calm down. And
It
I was like, wow.
It completely changes everything because if you know Jake Bishop on YouTube, he's another booktuber. Shout out Jake, who's a massive Wheel of Time nerd. If it was this easy for like 5 novices to destroy 10,000 Trollocs, like couldn't the White Tower just be like, "Hey,
Yes.
join," and like everyone just dies?
Decimate. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
It's
and then
good
when they
power creep.
started like killing all the Trollocs and stuff, Justin, my husband, was like, why did they wait so long?
Right? Lead with that. Just
Yes,
kill them.
exactly. That's what
Just
I
do
said
it.
that too. I said that too. I'm like, why did we wait for like all the fellas to
to
die?
die.
Let's
Like,
just sacrifice our
I
entire
just wanna-
army
I
in
wanna
this
interject.
terrible
I wanna-
wall that they can apparently just climb and like break through the little murder holes,
Yeah.
and then we're just gonna blow them all up. Because
I just want to interject one thing. How I took it where it wasn't completely stupid in my brain is how I had to tell myself is that the army who shot their crossbows weirdly took out a bunch of them. I had to tell myself they took out a whole bunch.
We just didn't really.
and then they were overrun, and then like a scattering of Trollocs were still coming. Like, because I thought the same thing. I was like, 10,000, that's a lot. But then like I didn't really feel like it looked like 10,000 by the time they got there. So I was
well,
like,
you couldn't see anything, so
That's
Or why
true.
would
Yeah.
why
It
would
was
the women
more than
push the walls?
10,000.
Then they could just
you're right, put them on top of that wall.
yes,
yes.
that's what I thought too.
It just doesn't make the writing to me. Even if you can't include, if you stay in this 8-episode framework, even on my limited knowledge of the first 3 books, I feel like they took out things or left out things to explain like the basic of like magic, like the basic problem,
Yeah.
the magic, and then add in things that weren't in, like why they added in stuff that like wasn't necessarily in the book or not a huge focus,
Mm-hmm.
and left out things that like especially once we get to episode 8, I'm like, but you haven't explained some of this stuff. Does anyone even know what the horn, like you just randomly
Yes.
bring this thing in?
So again,
No
though,
one
that's
has
the thing.
mentioned this before.
That's one of those things where it's like you don't have to make those changes. Like that's not something from book to show that you had to change.
Yeah.
Those are just changes because you wanted to, I guess. But it's like that.
Mhm.
So like these 5, was it 5 or 6 of them? 5. Like they join and then they all like burn out. And then for whatever reason, Nynaeve burns out, but Egwene all of a sudden has super resurrection powers and like immediately
It
brings
was
her back.
horrible,
Like
and I
that's
hate
so
it.
dumb.
That
I
made
saw
me so
somebody-
mad.
I giggled a little. Someone's like, is she like tangled? Where's she gonna heal with?
She's
her
gonna cry.
tears?
Or her hair, yeah.
Well,
Either
and
way.
like
I
when
mean,
they
I
were
guess she wasn't all the way dead, is my guess. But
it
but
also
also,
looked
like,
like it.
when you burn out, you don't die, right? Like, am I making that up? You don't die.
you don't
then
die
you-
when you burn
I think
out.
the
They
other
are
two
breaking
did.
the magic system for bad plot conveniences. You can only
Yes.
do
Yeah.
that for good plot conveniences.
so
Yes,
Like-
exactly. I'm with you, Angela. So going into the season, I knew they were going to make changes. I thought I was going to be okay with that. I thought they would
Mhm.
make changes for the better, like Alex was saying, because there's a lot of things about the books that could be better, especially
Of
more
course.
streamlined. And so I knew going in that it was going to be different. But I had a really hard time with some of the changes, which I know we have a question about that later. And I was kind of surprised at myself.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because the changes or like the series is so close to my heart that maybe this is how everybody else feels about other adaptations and their changes, where I'm like, oh, that's not a big deal. But I had a hard time with some of these changes. And it's because I didn't understand why they had to make that. Like, it didn't make sense to me. Like,
I think
the
it's going
wife
to create
thing
problems.
and the love triangle and then like we'll
Yeah.
talk about it, but like so many changes.
they
I was
read
like,
these
why?
books? I have.
That's,
Did they?
Rafe is supposed to be a
read-
massive
Yeah,
fan.
so I had a lot of
Did you
hope
read all
going
of
into the series because Rafe and a lot of the people on the team are huge book fans. So I was like,
See,
sweet. And they
this is
had Harry
where-
McDougal on board. They had
That's
Sanderson
why. That's
helping
why
out.
it's so
Like
disappointing.
I was like,
Because,
all right,
how do
people who
you have
care.
all of these people and then
That doesn't
that's
make
what
any
you
sense.
deliver?
It just doesn't make any sense.
I almost strangely think you needed this is probably not true, but I feel like you needed somebody who wasn't a book fan to be on their team to have them be like, this isn't gonna work. Like somebody who's really experienced writing for really experienced writing for television to be there and say, here's why this isn't gonna work, here's why this isn't gonna work. Because some of the things they did, to me, I was like, I don't think audiences are gonna appreciate some of these things and some of the ways that the magic was used, and I don't know. Anyway, so that is our the changes. Which ones did you like? Which ones did you dislike? If anybody wants to kick that off.
Oh, let's see. Changes that I liked. I liked that the characters weren't insufferable to me. That was lovely. But people who like the characters probably have a different experience.
So
I really like the changes that they made to Matt's character, made him more likable from the beginning, because I think some of those things become more obvious later on in the series. Like, you know, people tend to hate Matt at first and then they tend to, like, he grows on you. But from the very beginning, you get to see him be like a good big brother and see like this other side to him. So I really liked some of those changes that they did to his character.
I'm with you, Jade, on that one. What were you going to say, Sean?
Well, I don't know if this is a change, but just a general not a fan. I really didn't like, was it episode 5 with the warder? That guy, one, is a better actor than most of the people on the show, I feel like. So I was like, dude, get him off screen. He's like, you know, making you look bad. The other thing is, too, like, that was a whole episode dedicated to a warder that isn't important at all. I was like,
right.
Can we get back to the main characters?
That's something they put in things that, like, I mean, while I did like that because it was great acting, it's like that's all that time you could have been establishing other things, or like telling people.
Episodes.
Yeah, I think that.
But that's one of my favorite episodes, though. You take that episode out, and I don't have as good of a time.
Yeah, so
right? Because they created the character for the show. They developed the hell out of him. They made him a compelling character. You get the emotional beat of him losing his Aes Sedai. You spend an entire episode on it to never see him again.
I think that episode, I think, and I'm not saying any of you disagree with this. I think that episode obviously is showing just how deep Lan's connection is with Moraine by not having like cheesy dialogue of like, I'm so close to you, like not having.
Yeah, I think it's like world building.
But
I love seeing the tower.
I do agree that it took so much time. That episode was, I think, as far as the acting goes, so I think it was a great episode, but it would have been a great episode in a maybe 12 episode season, in which case then you can be like, dang, even the side characters have great plot lines. Instead, I feel like that guy had more development than Perrin had for the whole show.
They don't give Perrin anything to do. Like
Perrin,
the entire season, Perrin barely talks.
That actor, that poor actor, was just like
he literally grunts half the time. They don't give the man lines.
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, to be fair, Perrin's a very pensive character, and he doesn't say a lot, but I still agree with you.
But
I have another positive change I like.
The whole thing with giving him the wife thing was to bring the inward thoughts outward, right? To make it to show people his motivations, and then they do that, and then the rest of the time he's just, I'm bad, and I'm like, I don't care.
And I feel like they tried to poke fun a little bit, because when you meet Min and later Moraine goes up to her and she's like the brooding one, and then Moraine cuts her off and she's like, they're both brooding. And I'm like, yeah, but
that's true.
They need we need more than that. We need more.
Yeah.
I want to say another positive change for me, because I feel like we have a plethora, I guess, of negative ones. I love that, because for me, I always did want Moraine and Swan to be together, and I just knew that would never happen in the 90s fantasy book. And so I like that they chose to do that leap
to it and stuff, and they do mention.
Well, they were pillow friends.
Well,
You guys
Yeah,
know
okay,
what
yeah, but pillow friends to
mean,
the average
right?
person does not mean that.
I
Well,
did not
in the
read
books,
The Wheel
that's
of
what it
Time,
means.
but I didn't
Which
read
I
The Wheel of
didn't know
Time
when
and
I was
think that
reading
they
it
had a
in high school.
relationship. Yeah.
It wasn't until I read it as an adult.
I've read it as an adult and I missed that because I'm really dense and I didn't really think he was.
You know
putting
what
that in the
though?
book.
I don't think it's. I
It's
don't
the
think it's
slightest hint. It's not. It's
they
not
gotta-
like.
yeah.
Ooh,
I know for some people
representation.
they feel like it's super obvious, and then other people are
I
like,
don't think
"Oh,
it's obvious.
It's not
I
obvious,
think
'cause
Jordan
it's as
was a very
obvious as-
G-rated writer, and
Yeah.
a lot of the risque things were like left to your imagination, which is why
Yes.
I think
I don't
this
know.
is
There's a
good
scene with
series for
Rand
YA
and a
readers to
female that
read.
is pretty explicit. He can be explicit. There is a scene.
Hi, Luna.
Wait,
Yeah.
in a different book? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I'm not saying who it's with because it's
Wait,
Did
in
you-
this series, or are you talking about a different?
no in this series.
This
Rand is
series.
with someone and it's an explicit scene. It's not like I mean I would still say it's PG-13 or PG, but it like there are
Okay.
words used that you can't not think about what's happening. Like you know.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm so distracted because Luna came up and then she just passed gas, and it
Nice.
was very amusing.
Good old
Like
Papa.
I wasn't sure if anybody else could hear, but
I
I
mean,
missed
I-
a little bit of what you
Um,
guys were just discussing.
I like. Obviously, I've only read the first three, but I like that Lan. He obviously talks more. He's less, you know, brooding, and I like that. And I like the actor.
He
Those
barely
are like
says
my
anything in the
highlights of
book.
the show.
Do you like him, Jess?
Daniel Henney. Woo! That's why I will keep watching season maybe 2. Maybe.
So
I also.
oh, go ahead, Stephanie.
Oh,
Sorry.
I was just gonna say I like that we get to see more of Lan's background too. Like I think that was a good addition, and kind of
and the
That
development
was
of his
really
relationship.
sweet.
That's what I was going to say, Jade, is his relationship with Nynaeve. I know some people disagree. I've seen some people say they feel like the books develop them more. And I was like,
Such
where?
a lie.
No. The books, it's like, bam, it happened, and you're like, what?
All that happens
They
is that
meet each
he-
other, and he's just like, whoever you marry, I'm gonna hate him.
Yeah.
He's like, what? Have
I
you ever
remember
broken
reading
up
that
with him?
scene and being like, this is a good scene. I don't know where it came
Okay.
from, but this is good.
yeah.
The other reason why the whole Moraine has a tell thing frustrated me was because that's like the first reason why Lan was attracted to Nynaeve, because she was able to track him. And then turns out, no, she didn't track him. Moraine has a tell, which, what does that even mean?
And
They
why,
don't know.
why would Lan
They
not
don't
be able
know.
to recognize it after years of
Right.
being with her? They're like, hey, you like break every like bush that you walk by, you know, whatever it is. Maybe don't do that. Like it makes
It makes
no
no
sense.
sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So
was
I complained to Justin because, sorry, Stephanie, do you have things that you, I didn't mean to just skip you.
You're fine. Go ahead.
Okay, so one of the changes that I really disliked was the Moraine and Rand going to the eye by themselves. And like the whole having a tell thing is just like story making around to
Just
make
plot
that
convenience.
happen.
Yeah,
I hated that they left to go by themselves, and then because Lan wanted to follow them, they had to make up that Moraine had to tell so that Lan could follow them. Like the whole
I
thing-
have to say, I have seen a lot of what I'm gonna call criticisms I don't quite agree with that are very extreme. And one thing, the way I'm gonna word it is, in the last episode, Lan is running off to find Moraine, so he doesn't get to do awesome fighting, right? All the like awesome warriors, apparently, as soon as their crossbows, like as soon as they manage to get up the wall, they just get harpooned. And then Loyal, like, and he's just sitting there dying. And one thing I didn't understand was when Perrin's shouting at him, like, well, what's the point of the way of the leaf if what? And I'm like, you guys have never talked about this
Right.
together, so I
Why
don't
would
know.
Patton Ray give a shit?
Can you imagine if I
Yeah.
just go
Scared?
randomly yelling at you, but like, what about Catholicism? Like out of nowhere? That would be so weird. So anyway, then Perrin looks like he's. I will say, Perrin's what I'm going to call uselessness in that episode kind of made sense because Paden Fane, however you guys say it, makes him think like picking up the weapon is turning to the dark side, and I'm like, okay, that kind of fits with his character. And then obviously Matt's not even in this episode. So like, and then Rand, I don't mind that like the ladies were awesome in this show, whatever, but Rand just had to like not pick the obviously bad path. Like he just had to not be the worst guy ever. And it was like, dude, that's so easy. All he had to do is be like, you know what? I'm not going to force the world to break apart because I want a baby with Egwene. Like that's not much of a anyway.
He's grown so much from the first
so much grown. First, he couldn't even handle that she might want a different life that didn't involve him.
I mean, that's like the first episode foreshadowing when he's like, I'm imagining my family with kids. That's like them thinking they're clever.
Dream bigger, Rand.
We've gone full circle.
I think a change that could go either way for me, and I haven't decided how I feel, is when they decided to do the world building change of anyone could be the Dragon Reborn.
I like that change.
I liked it
I
until
don't
I
like
realized
it.
everyone's cooler than the main person that's going to be the Dragon Reborn. I think if they had somehow made Rand as cool as everyone else, I would have been okay.
Red hair.
Rand isn't even cool
Even
for like
above
4
Rand
books.
just isn't that cool to me.
He's not.
No.
And
Like
then
what
later.
Ridma had that
He's
tweet
not
about
one
like
of my
everyone's
favorites.
cool abilities, and Rand's is like recognizes a mountain. Like
So I saw I know I sent all of you this, but I had to laugh. So that was a great joke that, you know, everybody has these awesome, and then somebody explaining like, actually there's that scene with the Dark Friend where Rand busted down the door, and you're like, we know it was a joke.
Yeah.
I just can't stand it. Like, you don't need to explain super obvious things to us. I remember
5 dragon part, or everyone maybe is the Dragon Reborn. I don't know why. I mean, it's just woke nonsense. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. I just had to say it. I
was like, what?
well, like, I think that's the thing is like when they introduced that change, I was like, yeah, lean into it. If you're really going to break things, write a good show, like what Sean was saying, like go your own direction. And they didn't. They just went back to the same thing, which then just made me feel bummed because I'm like, okay, so we're back to business as usual.
Yeah,
it just doesn't make any sense.
Well, I feel like it's
when-
fun for non-readers to like not know. I don't know, but
I
it
don't know,
also
if I was
is
a
kind of obvious
non-reader,
it was Rand
I
at
would
the
have been
same
so
time.
annoyed.
I don't know. My wife is a non-reader. She overall liked it until the end of the season, but like a couple episodes in, she's like, "It's Rand." I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah,
My husband
it
too.
is." Like,
That's
it's
how you
not-
are
yeah.
with
they
the
weren't
Eye of the
really
World too, because
hiding
Eye
it.
of the World, right? It's like it's one of these 3 guys, and we're like,
yeah.
but it's Rand because everyone else has a cool thing so far.
What
right?
It
like,
doesn't make
for-
sense in the show where Rand's like, it's me. And this whole time it's been a question. Moraine doesn't know, Swan doesn't know, no
Well,
one knows. And then
and
Rand's
then-
like, it's me. And she's like, okay.
Yeah,
I know.
because he just in the last or the last 2 episodes, I think he starts recognizing stuff that he didn't.
It made it seem like he knew for like 5 episodes. though,
while.
just like
Yeah.
repressing it.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sean. I have to add something really quick.
Yes, Sean in the back.
Yeah. Oh, well, mine doesn't quite relate. It's just something I didn't like.
Oh,
So if
okay.
yours relates,
Mine
you can go.
relates. So
Okay,
I
yeah.
remember Jade, I think you mentioned this in our chat, but you weren't we didn't get to have you in the last episode. But
Mhm.
we talked a lot about how you missed the scene of Rand's father having all of these interesting things, and Rand's like, what? And then when they're showing you the ways that Rand knows it's him, they flash back to that scene that we never got to see. So
Mhm.
it was awkward because it's like you took away. I don't know. I felt like the way that they didn't show you Tam is his dad's name, correct?
Yeah.
Mhm.
They didn't show you Tam in the moment saying all these strange things because they're purposely withholding information
Withholding
from
it.
you.
They should have just done
Well,
that scene. In
I didn't
episode
mind
1.
that. Just throwing that out
I
there.
think that they wanted non-readers to question who it was, and in putting that in the first episode would have even more highlighted that it was Rand.
Yeah, then
And
it's just
that's like one of my favorite scenes from The Eye of the World. So like I was really bummed that it wasn't in there, and I was happy when they did the flashback because I was like, yay! But I do think it's a little confusing.
And I think that what sorry, I'm gonna let Sean say. Go ahead, Sean.
well, again, it's not related. It's just something.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was not a fan that apparently every channeler is just the Incredible Hulk waiting to happen because, like, Rand rightfully, because I was thinking this, Rand is like, hey, I've like really not used the one power at all, and you're taking me to the Dark One. She's like, if you're afraid enough, you'll get kind of angry and you'll save the day. I mean, I was beaten as a child and I stopped someone, and I was like, that's what you're doing? Like, you're just hoping Rand gets scared? That's
I
Well,
was
it's
hoping
a good
it'd be in
idea.
full book mode where Moraine's like, I can't help you, man. How men channel and women channel, no overlap. Can't help.
But they don't explain that because they were
They
doing that
don't.
whole it could be, which is
But I think like
annoying.
because
Yeah.
at the end of the Eye of the World, like the Eye of the World is like pure Sidon, right? And he like taps into it. This just there was the Eye. I don't even know if the Eye of the World was in the show. I was like, is that?
They
the
didn't
Eye of
have
the
it. They
World?
didn't
Because
have that.
it like
well,
wasn't a thing. Like
Yeah,
the Eye of the
so-
World in the book is like it's pure sighting. Like that's what it is. It's a pool
Yeah,
of
so
pure
there's at least
power.
somewhat of a reason for him to
Go there.
to be like powerful in that moment. But here he was just like, oh, I guess I'm.
She gives him the
That's right. He's a
Sa'angreal.
Sa'angreal. But like again, zero training in this moment. I just was like, okay.
I
guess,
don't think
like,
they foreshadowed a lot of that very
Yeah,
well. And I want
they
to add
didn't.
to Jess what you were saying about how Moraine just accepts it. And I had a lot of people that were, because I pointed that out when I talked about episode 7, and people were like, you're being unfair. I'm sure they discussed it. And I'm just like, I think she would need a little, like in the, I understand this is like a difference from the books, but she kind of starts to know it's him in the books. And she's noticing like Egwene happens, like her horse doesn't get as tired as everybody else's horse. If I think that's something like that she mentions. And so she's figuring it out. She kind of knows it's him. But in this one, there's like so many different prophecies, which they've established. There's like, they don't think they can even trust a lot of what they've been given. So when he goes to her and tells her like, oh, it's me, like some people are like, I'm sure that they talked after. She nods in that moment when he's like, it's me. She's like, there's a very almost imperceptible, like little nod. And I'm like, okay, so even if they did discuss though, I needed.
She's like, let me grab my bag. Time to go.
Yeah, they
Well,
need
that's the issue, right? Because
concrete reason to believe it's him.
And
Otherwise,
why would she go without land? Like that doesn't make
It's
any
dumb.
sense.
well,
There's
because they
literally
did
no
the
reason for
change
him
of
not to
whoever
be there.
goes to the
Which I also
stupid Eye of the
hated.
World that will die, and she didn't want land to
But
die.
Moraine didn't die.
okay, this actually gets to my what is probably my least favorite.
Why would any of them have died?
That's
Yeah,
just
my-
what they said in the show over and over
But that,
again.
sure, but
That was like a change that they made so that Rand and Moraine
It's a
would go by
plot
themselves.
convenience.
And it's
they literally
it's like
wrote that in just
circular.
to have them go. But that's a change that doesn't make any sense and doesn't
It
do
doesn't
anything for the
make
show.
One of my
Just like
least
the-
favorite, the writing, and I thought it was so out of character scenes. It was in episode 7 where Moraine tells them all, just so you all know, I don't know which one it is, and the rest of you are gonna die. So
Yeah, she would have never said
maybe I'll meet you in the morning. We'll see. And I'm like, what happened to establishing her gray
Right.
morality in episode 2 with the like ferryman and the whirlpool or whatever? Like if you gotta die, you gotta die because she's gonna save the world, whatever it takes. That went out the window apparently because she's like, well, if they don't want to, I guess everybody will die
Right.
then. And then she
And then
also
Egwene is like, "Well, I'm going," and they're
Yeah.
just like, "Well, she's gonna make us go one way or another." I'm like, "What?" Like,
but she also so she tells them like whoever doesn't make it will die. And then she has this line of like you will burn and become ashes in the wind or something real. And I'm like, wink, this is cheesy writing. What do you I'm sorry. I'm starting to shout.
The writing is terrible. The structure, I don't like how they structured the show with like, I wish like the prologue, I remember reading the prologue and be like, what is going on? I would have loved to seen that.
Another thing.
but
The
Yeah.
prologue would have been amazing.
over the pace of the 8 episodes, no one ever practices with channeling or nothing, no tip, no nothing, or explanation of why Moraine can't help. Never Rand like practicing with lamps or nothing. They are useless, but then all of a sudden at the end, whoo, magic powers, we're so strong. I
What's the
hate it.
point of even I'm gonna sound like it's trick, but what's the point of even having the White Tower to train if apparently
You can
you
just-
have like totally untrained
you can just do
people can
You don't
wipe
need
out
that. Not
entire
them.
armies?
you have
Not them.
2 women that have power that aren't even a novice in the White Tower that help annihilate an entire army of Trollocs and multiple fades that are never even shown. Like,
Nynaeve brought land
What
back
do you
from
need
the
training
dead.
for?
Egwene brought Nynaeve back from the dead, and then
Right?
all of those people.
Oh, and
are like
Loyal's gonna come
Loyal,
back, so we just
whoever.
have no stakes. We
Loyal's
have made up
obviously
But
not
stakes.
yeah, so
Like-
it's just like anytime someone dies, they'll be like, okay, who's gonna bring them back?
Yeah.
What's weird
Because-
is they don't have to do this, like Alex is saying over and over again. Like
There's
there are
changes for the
stakes
sake of
built
changes.
into the Wheel of Time
There
that
are.
you can lean into, and I think they got trapped into the whole we need to do a traditional season that has a contained arc, and the Wheel of Time does not have contained arcs within books. That just
No.
doesn't happen. It's one of my greatest complaints in the books. But they're not interesting. Like the Eye of the World story of we're traveling and we don't know who's the dragon reborn and we need to go to the Eye of the World, but we don't know why. Like you don't know that as a reader either. Like it's not intriguing. It's not bingeable. It's not every episode has you on the edge of your seat, right? That doesn't translate to Netflix TV. So they had to try and do that. And instead of like finding their own intrigue and their own path, they kind of shoehorned in and forced stakes that didn't exist, that had no payoff. Like I was having so much fun. Last video, I was fine with the first 4 episodes, even the ones people don't like. Like I like episode 2 like a weirdo. And then I watched episode 8 and I was straight up depressed. Like I was like, that sucks. I'm so sad right now. And I didn't want to feel that way. Any episode of TV that makes me feel that way is bad.
The only, I gotta say, I think we both were like, all right, is they showed the Shan, right? So I'm like, okay. I mean, so I think that gets us a little bit, we can talk other things.
Poor little Moana on the beach is just like, look at and there's
It's
After-
over for her.
I was like, what? Why?
I know. I said that too. I'm like, all that for the only thing is I was like, is this, well, I don't want to say
My
this.
wife was sitting there like, who are these people? And I was like, I'll tell you in a second. Like,
Yeah.
just they don't like that girl on the beach though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you gonna watch season 2? What things do you hope they change / fix? So I mean, I think if they're showing the Shan, I'm assuming we're gonna see I mean, I don't want to say things that happen in later books because of course I don't want to spoil that for people.
I mean,
But I
if they
think-
cast people though, it's gonna be out.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see some plot lines that involve some of our characters in the Shan.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think, I mean, that could be interesting. I don't know. So, I mean, I think we'll both watch season 2. To be honest, I don't know if I want to talk about it online because one of our other questions has to do with like the fandom. And I enjoyed watching every week, getting to sit with Sean and, you know, like watch and chat as we were going. But it wasn't necessarily enjoyable to like, some of the internet's reactions, it's like this almost isn't fun because some of you are becoming very so hateful. And does that make sense? Every week it was like stressful to post opinions. So, and then I know Jess has seen a lot of stuff because I was trying to avoid seeing other people's thoughts so that when I came to chat, I wasn't influenced by other people's opinions and thoughts and whatnot. Or their theories. But after the fact, once the entire season was out and seeing other people's thoughts, I'm like, oh man, I don't know. I think I thought maybe this fandom, it's not the whole fandom. There's, of course, within every fandom, there's a certain group that they're just cruel. And I don't know. I don't mean to sound like a big baby here, but mean. They're just genuinely mean to people. Like I had episode 7, so many people got so mad at me and they were saying like I was being purposefully hateful and cruel. And I watched back, I'm like, man, was I just going off? No, but I'm over here apparently just being angry for clicks. And then in episode 8, I have people saying that you are being too nice and it's because of niceness like you that we get these terrible shows because you don't have expectations. And I'm like, make up your mind.
Never win.
People are too nice. So anyway, I don't know that we'll talk about the show if we but I do want to watch it. I just want to watch it and see and then chat with all of you because it's fun.
Oh, you did insult the greatest fight scene.
Oh,
of the film,
don't
so-
stop. Ugh. So you all can
Probably
vouch for
why.
me. I immediately sent you all a message and said I thought that fight scene was like kind of cheesy. And then none of you agreed. I just want to say. And then like I saw the internet be like, oh my gosh, this episode was this fight scene. And I'm like, uh-oh. And I even had a community tab post that was like, I'm sorry if you don't like hearing negative things about something you like. I'm a little less enthused about this episode. I'm sorry. And then
I thought that
like-
fight scene was badass.
I thought it was good. I liked it a lot, but I feel like the reception was a little bit overboard because people were like, get ready to watch the greatest cold open ever.
I just think people like
was like-
stylized fight scenes, and it was very stylized.
It
And
was
I
very-
also think it was a call out for book readers. You know,
It
like
was,
book
of
readers
course.
were like, "Oh, this is cool." Like as soon
Like,
as
it
I
was
saw
cool.
it, I was like, "Man, they were like, people were theorizing we were going to see that, and
Yeah.
like to actually see it, like I was like super hyped about it. So
I thought
do
it was
think
cool. It was probably the best choreographed fight in the entire show, just because the
Yes,
rest of it's just
I
kind of
agree.
like really fast, blurry
yeah.
CGI
And
fights.
it's like the first glimpse at the Aiel,
Yeah. I just think
which
My
I
wife
love the
said-
Aiel.
My wife in the middle of that goes, "Wait, is she having contractions right now?
I
There's no
know.
way she's doing this."
I mean,
It's
I think
fantasy. Let
that-
it happen.
I think I'm not somebody who's like, this is actually really unrealistic. Like, I'm not necessarily like that. But when I watch a fight scene, I like when the camera angles don't change very much, because I like seeing just how long the choreography continues on. And I'm poor
Rather
Sean.
than having like a ton of cuts.
Yes, like when I rewatched, and he can vouch for me, as soon as the scene started, I was pausing it. I'm like, look at that guy's reaction. He's like acting like when she spins his sword and then she stabs him and he like flies back. And I'm like, are we watching a Wild West reenactment right now? Like, I was so, and I kept rewinding. I'm like, let's count how many camera changes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm like, it's like 40 and anyway, so
Off topic,
You're
have you
just
seen
supposed to
Atomic
watch it and
Blonde? It
keep
has one of the
going.
longest no cut scenes on a stair that's really cool. Atomic
one?
Blonde's one of my favorite spy movies.
oh,
Oh.
it's that
Not seen
sounds
that.
like the Daredevil hallway fight.
Yeah,
I-
no, it's
I'm like-
1980s with a South African actor that is very famous, and I'm just forgetting her name because I only know superhero actor names.
1980s.
I just gotta say,
Oh, I
No,
know
it
what
was
Green
published now. It's based in the 1980s.
I-
It's Charlize
my-
Theron,
Yeah,
isn't it?
I think so.
I
Atomic
don't know.
Blonde,
It came
Charlize
out in like
Theron?
2016.
oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
My favorite fight scene like ever is if you just type in Jackie Chan ladder fight. Oh my gosh.
I love
It's
Jackie
the
Chan.
coolest thing. The ladder fight is amazing. Anyway, so
I made a huge mistake.
Hold on.
during the
Yeah.
fight. Huge mistake. I'm sorry.
the thing is, it looked visually like, and people were like, well, you should go and watch the behind the scenes. And I was like, okay. So I did.
Okay, I do
You
want to
shouldn't
interject
have to.
one thing. I want to interject one thing, and it's not important. But to the people who said, go check out the behind the scenes. Okay, the people filming it, making the behind the scenes, are going to tell you how good it is. Like, I don't understand why people are like, they tell you how great it is. No, duh.
Well,
They made it. They're
my-
gonna say it's really good. Look at this really good thing we made. And then people are like, they told me it was really good. So it must be.
so
Anyways,
there is a part of him that's being a little bit like protective husband, because he was losing his mind. He's like, why can't they just accept you didn't love this fight scene? But my thing was, and I said, like, I just wish they hadn't had so many camera cuts, because I actually think it takes away from how good that woman was, the like stunt actor. I didn't say stunt actor, but like it makes it seem like they're
It
not
covers up bad choreography when you
Yeah,
have the
and so that's what
Okay.
all the camera changes were. So when I went to see the behind the scenes, it was all about like, look at this awesome camera we used. I'm like, well, this doesn't change my mind. This just means like the camera was cool.
It
Anyway,
was like a
all
pretty
my opinions are really good.
Sorry
Because-
that I got off on that side tangent.
I want to say one thing about fight scenes. How come we didn't get any okay. Anytime there was the sword, they showed the sword with the heron. They don't
Yeah.
explain what that means.
Mhm.
There were no scenes of Lan teaching Rand how to use his freaking
Yes.
sword. I
That
wanted
doesn't
to see
happen
that
till the
so
Great Hunt, just so
badly.
we're clear. I think that happens in the Great Hunt at the beginning.
Oh,
Well, they
really?
bring
Yeah, it
the
doesn't
Great
happen in
Hunt
Eye of the
in
World.
at
Not
the
saying
end.
that they should stick to the book purely, but I'm just
True.
saying it didn't happen
True.
yet.
Okay.
Well, I just
Well,
think
maybe
the
my
heron
timeline
was-
is off. But they kept giving all these like mysterious shots of the heron on the sword. I'm like, tell people what that means.
Yes,
There
I
were
think-
so many things that
No
I
one
felt
says
like they
anything
hinted
about it.
at and like never explained. And it's like, if you didn't read the books, you don't know what this is
I
about.
think the heron marked blade didn't hint at it much at all. I think that we get the scene with the Aiel in the one episode with Tom where he's
He's
like,
in the
this is an
cage.
Aiel. It
Yeah.
has red hair. And Sean was a little frustrated because in the books, they make a point to be like, Rand he's got that red hair. So again, I feel like they were kind of taking away certain things.
Well, you do have Loyal being like, oh, you're an Aiel from the Two Rivers. That's
Mhm.
strange. And Justin like looked at me and was like, what's an Aiel? So I mean, it was confusing.
You know what I want in season 2? Speaking of the sword stuff, I want every sword fight for them to like they swing their
Name.
sword and then it's like kitten jumps in the grass, you know, and then like,
Explain
Name
the
it.
sword style.
flex it, and then it's like sheep munching on
Grass.
grass. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
For those who haven't
87
read the
sword
book, that's how
styles.
the fight scenes are described as the
Yeah.
sword moves, and it makes no visual sense.
no sense whatsoever. I love it.
Yeah, I
I hate
guess
that part of the book. Please
I
don't do
guess
that.
to answer the question originally that was here,
Oh, yeah, what-
I actually I hope that we get a lot more fight scenes, to be honest, that aren't CGI. Like I just want person on. That's one thing about Sean Chan that I feel like maybe they're gonna make the threats more human, potentially, and then maybe we'll see. I don't know. The show is so hard to adapt because there's so much magic, and I think live
Mhm.
action magic is just hard. to pin
But all
down.
they my issue with that though is like the weaves are pretty simple as far as like how they display them. They really only show like black and white literal like threads. They like when they're fighting in the woods in like episode whenever the
3 or
4.
4, I don't remember.
3 or 4, they're just like shooting like puffs of like air and like leaves are blowing up and like it doesn't really show a whole lot. And then even like they channel some lightning for a second in episode 8 and like Moraine shoots a couple of fireballs, but like they don't show there's not like that much I guess that they're visually showing outside of like the literal weaves themselves, because even the entire thing in the Eye of the World with Rand and Baalzamon, it's just the weaves again, it's just circling him and then he just like disappears because Rand's just like, no, I don't want this, and then he's just like he's just gone. Like I don't know.
I think for me, season 2, I mean, my favorite antagonistic force in the Wheel of Time that keeps me going is the Sean Chen. Like, that's the thing that I'm like, this is interesting to me. Everything else that the book pretends is interesting to me is not. But the Sean Chen, I'm always like, you guys are creepy, and I
They
like it.
disappear for a long time.
I know, but then they come
You
back.
do, but then it's exciting when they come back.
It's really exciting. I really like them, and I don't like them. I can't talk about
You
them.
like
We're
them.
not spoiling
Angela
them,
is
but-
pro-slavery.
One
That's what we're gonna
one change that I hope they make is to make the White Cloaks less mustache twirling, because in this one it was like, I like to eat this chicken
I
that
like when it
makes me
bleeds.
bleed, and you know, like I don't know. And then when Perrin gets his like wolf eyes in that moment and he's like, ah, and he gets all flabbergasted and I'm like, buddy, I mean, aren't you tougher than this? I don't know. He just flipped out and wimped out, and I don't know. I feel like the White Cloaks, they didn't seem clever. They just seemed like a bunch of dum-dums, and I wanted them to
But
be.
they are dum-dums.
But they are dum-dums.
They are.
I don't feel like they're quite like
They're
that.
dumb. They're not good.
The White
I know.
Cloaks suck and they're really dumb, but the show made it like, okay, we're gonna have them be dumb, but we're all just gonna make them like weirdly like sexually creepy, and like it was
don't like
the
the
whole
White
thing with him like cutting Perrin's back and like
Yeah.
seeming
That
like
was
he's kind of
very
getting off on it, and then like he's getting off on like burning an Aes Sedai and his little ring collection, and I'm just like,
That's
you
what
get it, dude. Like you're a bad guy.
So this takes us back to something that I said we would touch on, and then we haven't gotten to quite yet. Is that if you read Sanderson's like, you know, oh, they handed me the script and I made these suggestions and I'm glad to see, but he won't tell you certain suggestions because I'm assuming he doesn't want to be like, I wanted them to do this, but they didn't do it. I think that the show's tone is strange. I think that there are some
It
moments
can't
that
decide what it
feel,
wants to be.
yeah, some moments feel kind of CW, and then some moments feel like they're trying to go for the dark Game of Thrones vibe. And I feel like these twisted, strange White Cloaks seemed more Game of Thrones inspired. And then you have some moments that feel kind of campy and like wholesome. We're just two rivers folk, and it was a strange blend, and it almost felt like too many cooks in the kitchen. Like
Yeah.
I think Sanderson wanted, because Wheel of Time, sure, there's certain things that are very dark, but I don't feel like I read those. They don't feel grimdark. You know what I'm saying?
No.
So I feel like there's this. Sanderson talks about how he feels like the books are filled with hope, whereas the show, it's like there were moments where it felt like that, and there's moments where it seemed like it wanted to be much darker, and then that affected, I think, the coloring too of the show.
They
Like,
made it
the
too
tone
depressing.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't like the depressing end. Like, it's a cliffhanger, but it's not a cliffhanger where I was like, I know internally I'm going to watch season 2, but even though I think Stephanie and I might be on a similar level of liking the episodes on average more than everyone else, but after that episode, because I'm such an endings person, I'm like, do I need to? Like, it's going to be another 10 hours of my life to watch a season that I might not even like that much. And it's not even like I love the IP that much. And it really bummed me out. Like, I was really bummed. Like, I hate that. And, like, I don't like endings of Wheel of Time books that much. They're generally just like, we have the climax of the book, the end. Like, they don't usually resolve anything.
They don't leave you, like, depressed, though.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I know some people didn't like the Rand just leaves. I have a couple thoughts on that. I mean, I think
there's a big issue with that because not because of the dumb reason of like, oh, they made all the women strong and they gave them nothing to do. Like, that's the dumb reason. They're like, but like the fact that they take that power from Rand when that it really is like his moment of like, see, he's the dragon. This is why he's strong. But they chose not to do that because they completely separated from that combat. And then he literally just walks away. Like, and Moraine, hold on, is Moraine stilled? Can we talk about this?
I know. I think a lot of people are saying they think that the
shielding hasn't been explained.
Just because it hasn't been explained doesn't mean it hasn't happened. It sounds like a lot like what happened to a different character in a later book.
But you also you can still kind of feel that and never be able to use it when you're stilled, can't you? I mean, like shielding hasn't even been like introduced as a thing. So like if you're a show,
it has been. They shielded Logain.
They shielded Logain for like a whole episode.
But that was them like literally sitting there channeling and like keeping him there. Like
so this is a
literally
thing
like grabs it out of her, and then he's just like, you can't.
It hasn't been explained in the show, but like minor world building spoiler for the book. I won't talk about characters, but this is an ability that Forsaken only seem to have. It's not a thing an Aes Sedai can do. So I think it makes sense in the world. Like this is
like
not a part of it,
right? It's almost like a knot in the weave or something like that.
It's
and you can like feel that it's right there and you can't access it. I don't know.
I think that's what they did.
It doesn't happen to Moraine, so why?
Oh, I know. It's
right. Like, I don't understand why.
Again, we need to make fake stakes to make you feel bad. We need to pretend Loyal's dead for a minute. We need to like have Nynaeve almost die. We have to watch.
Heard that they feel like Moraine doesn't have much to do in the books, like in the next book, so they're trying to give her more of a plot line. And then, so with Rand, I think, again, I don't want to give away too much for what?
I said, so take her power away. That's going to give her more to do.
So I have a couple, I don't know, I'm going to chat like theories. And so I think with Rand, I think they're just advancing because Angela, before we started, you said, or maybe it was at the beginning, that you've heard season 2 is going to combine books 2 and 3 or something.
Yeah, and don't trust me. I don't have sources. I've just heard this.
Sean and I often refer to a certain arc for Rand as Rand Goes Camping, and I feel like they're just getting us to the Rand Goes Camping arc. But my theory, and again, these are just theories.
But doesn't that happen way later? Maybe not.
That's in the third book.
Yeah, book 3.
But the second book doesn't do much with him.
Yeah. So I think they're just advancing. They're getting him to Rand Goes Camping.
I think book 3 doesn't do a lot with Rand either until
I think they want Rand to, because I've seen the casting for Elaine. I think they want to be able to have Rand and Elaine interactions without, like, you understand that now Egwene thinks Rand is dead. Rand is like distanced himself from them. So I think they want the viewers to not be like, what a jerk, because if something develops with Elaine, I think they're like, well, he did kind of like, he made everybody think he's dead. And as far as the Moraine plot, my theory is that they're going to have her and Logain end up like working together almost, because he's been stilled or, whatever. He's been stilled and she's got whatever's going on with her. So I think they're giving her a plot line that's going to involve him and maybe Nynaeve, because I think Nynaeve will be the one to...
Are they going to do that?
I think they're going to. That makes sense.
But that's
I
so...
accept it. Accept
it. I can see that putting a rift between Moraine and Swan, and then having there be like this tension now, because they showed us just how much they love each other. But now it's going to seem like Moraine's truly gone rogue, and then Swan can't back her up at all, and she truly has to see like Moraine's dangerous, even in exile. She's dangerous.
Sounds so bad.
That's like so far from the books, though.
So I want to say something.
This is not an adaptation of Wheel of Time. Like I think that's what we have to accept. This is not an adaptation of the Wheel of Time. This is the showrunners being like, "Here's the Wheel of Time. We're gonna take a lot of this and then just do our."
I
own
could be
thing."
super wrong though, so that's
I could
It
totally see
sounds
that
close
happening.
to right to my brain.
I could
but-
totally see that happening.
what are you gonna say?
I was gonna say, concerning Nynaeve and her maybe resurrection at the end, I thought that was also weird because if you're gonna have someone do like crazy healing, it should be Nynaeve. So if someone was gonna like
They should have
burn
just done it
out,
the
it
other
should
way.
have been-
Totally. They should have
Yeah.
switched that.
it
Like
should have been
that's
Egwene. And I think that's what's weird is like she is such a powerful healer. I liked the 4th episode where she like heals the whole room. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But then they'd be like, also Egwene's really good at healing
Yeah,
too,
like-
even though she's
Well,
not.
yeah,
like
and
it's like okay.
That's like the one thing she's not good at.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
it's just like that's such an odd choice. Like if you're going to do that, you use the wrong
Yeah.
character.
And I
They
think-
already established that Nynaeve could do it. Like,
Yeah.
just do it
I
again.
think Nynaeve too, and why I love episode 4 is because the whole battle, she's seeing everything happen around her. You've seen her start to like kind of bond with these warders, and like she's learning more about the Aes Sedai. And we know that when Nynaeve gets angry is when she ends up. And so I'm like, get angry, come on, get angry. And so when it finally happens, I was like, yes. And it felt very fitting too. Whether you're, I think it was satisfying for non-readers. And then it was really like cool for readers because you're like, come on, I know you're gonna get mad, you're gonna
Yep.
heal everybody. But with Egwene, it's like, so is it when Egwene gets sad that she gets powers? Like, I don't understand.
The
I don't
power
even know
of
if they really explained if Nynaeve even has a block in this
That's-
inspired.
They
We don't
not
even
yet.
know or
Not
not.
at all.
We have no clue.
Yeah.
We haven't.
I think something I hope for season 2 is more explanation of their version of the magic system. I guess I can accept that it'll be different, but I think something that I appreciate about the Wheel of Time, even if I don't love the series, is that it is one of the more pivotal fantasy works in hard magic systems. And it has low magic and like soft magic in its dream world stuff, but like when it's on our physical plane, it has very strict rules and it follows them, and it's like what inspired Sanderson, and then Sanderson's inspired all these people.
Yeah.
And I feel like I would like them just to pick a rule set and be consistent. And if they're going to break it, don't do it in the dumbest ways that everyone always hates. Like,
Yeah.
no one likes the
Yeah.
resurrection trope. Like, no
Yeah.
one likes that.
No.
No.
And,
And I just was so frustrated because getting burnt out doesn't kill you. Like,
No, and when you link, you cannot be burnt out. That's part
Yeah.
of linking.
yes.
But
So
they like super linked.
Yeah.
I can see
They
them.
linked too hard.
I can see them giving more explanation in season 2 if they have Egwene go to the tower.
Yeah.
Then maybe you'll get some. But so far, their explanations haven't been great. Like Moraine's like, she whipped me with the, or whatever she says, and then I became really powerful. But I do also hope they give more explanation. I think that raises the stakes when you feel a little bit more. Anyway, and then I feel like something like Witcher does not have a hard magic system, and they tried to give it more rules. And then this has sort of been the opposite, where it has a harder magic system, and then they've kind of made it like here and
Yeah,
there. They
whatever.
give you random info,
Yeah.
but
And like for The
Anyway.
Witcher, it works for me because I know it's soft magic and low magic, and they're relatively careful at not power creeping it. Where like we're just breaking a hard magic system and making things overpowered in the first season. Which like if you do have a soft magic system, you can't do that to later seasons. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's what Harry Potter does. Like that's what every soft magic system world does. You have to wait to.
I don't know, it kind of has me worried for season 2 though, because I don't think they're going to explain much of anything if they're going to combine 2 books into a short season. Like that's
Yeah. No, that
if
is.
they're,
Well,
there's going to be so much happening. They're just going to have to like cut.
Well, I mean,
all
we're
of the
taking out
information.
probably the entire Matt arc, right? Because we've pretty much already fixed a dagger situation.
But they
Did-
didn't
I was
have
not
to
happy
make
that that was
there.
fixed so easily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
I
did
was
feel
wondering-
very sudden.
I thought that too, because I'm like, what was the point of even having that arc in here then? But I think they're gonna try to do something with that based off of him like looking all creepy at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess as far as Alex, what you were saying about, they are going to have to cram so much. I'm curious how they're going to fit White Tower stuff in and Sean Chan. Like, I think White Tower is going to end up being
They
very.
better buy some more episodes. Because
Not to say, I mean, they can do what they did in The Great Hunt and just follow that. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're definitely going to be splitting. Characters do get split apart in the books. That's not new, but they're definitely going to have to split everyone up again. And I think the same issue you run into in general with Wheel of Time and with this first season is you don't have enough episodes to have everybody's arc be satisfying.
You can't.
Yeah, they're all
I just had a horrible thought. What if I think they might conflate the climaxes of the end of the second and third book. I don't think they're gonna. I think we're gonna be in one location, not both of them.
That would be so weird, though.
I think that I don't think you can have both of those endings in one season.
You
I
could.
think they have. Well, so to be sort of kind to it, the end of the second book and the end of the third book
they're very similar.
Similar.
I mean, like I'll be happy. I'll be happy if Rand gets to Tyr at the end of the second season. I'd be down with that. But
yeah,
like,
I'd be down with that.
I don't need him fighting in the sky. I don't need that.
Okay, so the ending of book 2, though, like the horn is very important. It's the entire point of the Great Hunt.
Is it important though? Because I'm on book 8 and I'm unsure.
It is, but
It is.
Listen, Robert Jordan really likes to start something and then not do anything about it for 6 books.
I know we make fun of the show for bad pacing, but the source material is worse.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm kind of in both camps though. Like for season 2, yes, I'm gonna watch it because why not? I'm gonna watch it. I have some faith that it could be better because although I liked Witcher season 1, it had a lot of problems. I'm not a book fan. Like I haven't read to The Witcher, so I'm not in the camp of like I hate everything about The Witcher because they changed so much. But I watched season 2 and I genuinely loved season 2 and I thought it was way better than season 1. So I think that could happen here.
Yeah.
But from an adaptation standpoint, I'm just gonna go into it knowing it's not Wheel of Time and they're doing something totally different. But also, I feel like if they're gonna try to do, because I don't know how many seasons they're doing, but if they're gonna stick to this like 8-episode,
I mean, I think they've only been greenlit for 3, but
yeah, I don't really know.
Yeah, I saw like Rafe's plan is 8 seasons.
So if his plan is 8 seasons, hopefully they get more episodes. Because if you're gonna do 8 seasons to get through 14 or 15 books essentially in 8 seasons, and you're going to start combining things this early, I feel like you can do that with a slog because there's not a lot of plot from like books 7 to 10. Like that you can
about 7. 7 has a lot of plot.
It does, but like 8
Angela doesn't have plot.
But like 8 to 10 don't. That could be like a season.
Yeah, that's fair.
But if you're going to do 2, but like 2 and 3, that's way too much to cram into one season.
I don't know. I think you're remembering stuff in The Great Hunt that doesn't happen because The Great Hunt was so boring until the last third for me. I was like, why are we doing anything?
So here's my I know a lot of people that are book fans are very upset at so many of the changes. And then I think going into it, a lot of people are like, of course they have to change things. It's a show. I think the biggest thing is don't advertise just how big of a fan you are of the books and how this is going to be. Because I think it gave people the impression like
it was
we're going to make this. What was that?
That it was going to be a faithful adaptation.
Yeah, I mean, I think they sort of were hinting at. Angela kind of joked about this. The whole like it's a different turning of the wheel in the first 4 episodes that we had a discussion for. But I think you really have to up. You know, we are definitely taking this in a different direction. We love the source material, and we're doing something a little different. Because I feel like easier to upset people before than to upset people once it's out and then they feel like they were lied to almost. I'm not saying they straight up were like lying to us or something, but it's because I remember in season 1 of Witcher, and of which I am a huge fan of the Witcher books and the video game, which is not canon, but still I love it. They were very much like, we're adapting the books and we're going to be really true to the books. So much so we can't even give Henry Cavill a beard because he doesn't have a beard in the books. And then they changed an entire scene, like how Geralt meets Yennefer.
Mm-hmm.
They changed the timing of that so that there can be a bunch of naked people in that scene instead of what is actually like a very funny scene because it's the day after. And like Yennefer, it's like, I need juice because she's like, you know, she partied the night before and stuff. And I'm like, what? Okay, if you're not going to give me his beard, which a lot of people like, I'm not even saying we need the beard. I'm just saying if you're going to tell me that it's super true and then it's not super true and you change things that feel inconsequential, I'm going to get frustrated. And in Wheel of Time, they didn't just change inconsequential things. They changed really huge things. So I don't know. I just
Fans-
Like, I've been
Fans are
impressed
funny,
with how
though.
The Witcher's taken the source material, and it's definitely really different in season 2, but also way more true than I expected, because I have
Yeah.
read all the books and I'm not a fan of what happens, or the focus of it, I guess I should say. And I was like, oh, I'm really impressed where you moved things, and they moved some things up, and I was impressed.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say fans are funny, myself included, because with the Watchmen HBO show, they told me it was going to be not like Watchmen, and I still was like, that's not like that's not Watchmen.
That's not my
It's
one.
definitely not like Watchmen, you're right.
And they told me, and it's not what it is.
But I would rather they be upfront and just be like,
Yeah.
it's super different. And, we're giving, I guess I would appreciate if they said, we're giving nods to the source material and the original work, but we are definitely taking it in a different direction. And I guess I would have appreciated that. And I'm not even saying as a book fan, because I don't love the books, I don't care for them. But for people who are, I feel like it would have been much easier to go in and be like, oh, that's one of the changes they made. That's one of the changes they made.
Yeah.
But like, if you do that and then still make a kick-ass TV show, it's fine. Like, I can
Exactly.
accept that. Be like, okay, this isn't Wheel of Time. It is its own thing, but I really, really like it. And I got to certain points of the show where I was like, all right, this is pretty good. It's not Wheel of Time. Like, they're definitely changing things, but like, it's kind of good. And then by the end of it, I was just like, this is just not good. Like,
Yeah.
you're changing things and you're not making it a compelling story, which is just.
I'm hoping season 2 will be more polished from a storytelling perspective, because they won't suddenly have to figure out their casting problem. Like, I think that's more why I'll watch it, is because I feel like that was a huge hurdle that they obviously stumbled over. And someone somewhere in the chain should have been like, hey, pause, wait, we don't have a good finished product because of this problem we had. And that's on them for not doing that. But with season 2, hopefully they just, they don't have to do that. And maybe I'll get a more narrative flow,
Jess, were you going to say something?
Yeah. So for season 2, I mean, I'm going to watch it, but the same, I hope the writing is better. I'm really disappointed in the lack of the Perrin Wolf story, because I love that in Game of Thrones, and I was really hoping to see that. Like, they had the hint. So I don't know if it was something with budget and they didn't want to do all that. I don't know if it's going to come into the next one. And then also, I just, with better writing, I need them to, since they have moved past this, any of them could be the dragon. Like, stop making all of the men just pathetic and useless, and like, I just need them to even out the things here, because they're just looking like buffoons and just dum-dums. I hate it. And then I also, for the second season, hope, like, already they get a bunch of backlash because it's so diverse, and they're like, oh my god, people from Two Rivers won't look like that. My complaint, however, in the show is that everyone that's a dark-skinned character, a black dark-skinned character, is a villain or dies early. I would like that to change. Probably won't, because they're like, have enough on screen, but it bothers me. Like Pat and Fane, the guy from the White Cloaks. It's always, because people, yes, there's Nynaeve and Egwene and Perrin, but it's always, dark-skinned black people are always villains, or they die early in adaptation, and I hate it. It probably won't change, but it's just like my thing that I would wish for in the next one.
I have 2 things I want. I want Perrin more, and I want them to change Loyal's hair.
Let parents speak.
Oh my god.
I hated I loved everything else. I thought the actor did a good job with his personality.
Little orange perm they gave him.
Like, get rid of the perm. The
actor is great.
Yeah.
He's hilarious when he's on screen, because he's just like,
his voice is wonderful.
He's perfectly like lovable and like giant teddy bear, and just totally aloof to what's happening.
Yeah, and that was my I like what they did with his personality. I thought
I liked when they go to the ways and he's like, Lorraine's really fast and we're not known for our speed, so I'm gonna go. I like that.
Oh, I have a question for the group. So in the Swan and Moraine love time, where are they? I thought maybe it was the dream
I think it is.
But they also have, like, they they
Well, I just thought we invented traveling early, and I
Yeah,
just gave up.
Yeah, but see, if they
Yeah,
James
because they
is
have
Hooray
like a
Girl.
portal thing,
No.
right?
But it can't be traveling because
It's not traveling.
why didn't they just travel to the like to the White Tower? It can't be, or I will lose my mind.
Yeah, it has to be the tree.
So
I mean, it could be Teleron, but it just looked like some random shack in the middle of the woods.
It looked like where Swan grew up. That's
Yeah.
what
Yeah,
it
I think they went.
that's
So
why I thought it
I
was a
watched
dream.
a video today, and they said that in like the X-ray or some extra content, they called it a terangrial that she used to go where she's going. I think the question is still where she's going. Either she went to someplace in Tyr where they like meet, I guess, often, not often, but when they can. I thought it might have been the dream world, but
Because I thought maybe the dream world only could, well, because that's the only thing it made
Makes
sense to me,
sense.
but also like their wardrobe changes. Like I remember like, if they don't like concentrate, like their clothes might change. That I don't know, because if it's just like a special
I like lost my mind when that happened. I was
Yeah,
like,
I-
what is happening? They can't do this. What are they doing?
Yeah, I think it makes more. It's called Tel Aaron Riyadh, right? The dream world.
Ron Riyadh.
There's a lot of ta something.
Yeah, I feel like that makes the most sense because like the wardrobe change, like he said, and also I thought it was showing that Swan made it look like her childhood home.
Yeah. But like they shouldn't know how to do that.
Well, that's
it's supposed to be a pretty rare gift. Also,
well, I mean, if they're using a Turon girl to get there, that makes sense. But they're not supposed to know that much about the dream world and how to how to be there, how to manipulate.
Can confirm Swan is bad in the dream world in the books.
But I guess that's one of those things that like I don't understand what they were going for, and I don't get the impression they understood what they were going for.
No, they just treated it like a soft magic system. They
Yeah, it
really
was
didn't
kind
think it
of-
through. I think we're giving them way too much credit here.
Yeah,
Like
it
I
kind
get
of-
that they wanted. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sean.
Well, it's just like it seemed like they're like, oh, we need a safe place for them to communicate, and they're like, well, we can't do it at the tower. They'll just have a portal, and I'm like,
Exactly.
A portal where they have
like.
Yeah.
Anyways,
it's their sexy time.
I thought I would give
Hello
us the
time.
truth, but it seems like we're on the same page here.
Something I want in season 2 is a Fael that I won't hate. We'll see.
It's impossible.
It probably is impossible, but it could happen.
Fael's the worst for.
But
a
she
long
has to
time.
show up, right? If we're doing books 2 and 3, Fael's
her-
showing up.
Well, they're already getting Perrin used to not speaking and having nothing to do, so it'll be great.
I feel bad for whoever they cast because the amount of times in the books that they're like, she has a hawk nose. I'm like, I feel bad if they're, I don't know.
They probably
Yeah.
won't
They
stay
did-
true to that.
They probably won't. I mean, they changed Loyal. I'm really bitter about that. So
What did you
Yeah,
guys
Loyal. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, this was a scene that I both liked but was confused about. Because I liked it because I liked seeing the sci-fi parts, but I thought Luce Theron was not in the sci-fi part of the history. Because when you see the prologue in Eye of the World, he's in like a castle, like a normal stone castle. It feels medieval in the prologue of the Eye of the World. But when we're seeing Luce Theron, he's
Star Trek.
which I thought was cool. But I then had to look up the difference between the breaking and then what happens with the power because they're different moments in time. And I'm like, am I conflating them? What is happening? So I got really confused there, but I'm not a diehard fan, but I was like looking things
they
up.
want you to. Yeah, I think they want you to know it's like, look, everybody, it's actually post-apocalyptic. That's why everywhere looks like America. I think that's what they're going for.
Everywhere looks like America, but we still use British accents for a fantasy show.
Every time.
Yeah.
It's
I
even
know.
written by like someone in the South in America. Like, I don't understand. Don't come at me, Wheel of Time fans. I know that he has countries per word. I looked it up. I know that I'm being ridiculous, but I just get bitter.
Someone said the two rivers. I saw a thing on the Clock app that someone was saying they were going through they were talking about people's backlash with the diversity of the cast, especially from the Two Rivers folks. And then went down because their names are like Almira, whatever, Althor. And then what Two Rivers means. And they were saying it's like he said it was very obviously Middle Eastern inspired. And I was like, is it? Very? Because it was something like he said, like Two Rivers and something about I don't and I was like, Mesopotamia. I'm like, is it clearly coded that way? Is it?
I don't
miss
think
that?
anything in the Wheel of Time is clear.
All right,
No.
so this
I'm
was
like,
the post.
I
think
guess.
Yeah, because even
But-
in like our chats when we've gone through the books, I've asked questions like, does this seem like it's influenced by this country or like this religion? But it's never clear.
Which
So-
is a fantasy world, so I get he's kind of doing his
Yeah.
own thing.
Yeah.
But you know, I think so. I think in general, I'm glad that we're seeing so much more diversity. I think that the show was always going to have a hard time because if you make the two rivers really diverse, then Rand ends up looks like the white savior because he's like the only white guy. I mean, Matt ends up being white, but you have the two rivers looking like much more diverse, and then you have the white guy saving the day. But then if everybody's like, look at how white bread vanilla the two rivers is, and also the rest of the world, then it looks very like, I just think that it was always going to be kind of awkward because the source material is older, and it is like there are different areas that have a lot of different like cultures within this fantasy world, and there's different groups that look different. But I think it was like, it's an older series. So if you're trying to update it, you're going to upset people that are like, but actually that character is white. And then by updating it and still having Rand be white, then it's like also kind of, it's just generally tricky.
But had all the actors been white, wouldn't have been any better because the writing was abysmal. So sorry to anybody watching who thought that would have improved it. It wouldn't have.
I mean, that's definitely not the issue with the show.
I
I understand the
Angela.
complaint of like it takes away from like Rand being unique where he's at because like everyone's so diverse. It's like, how would this guy stick out of the crowd? But beyond that, it's just like
red hair.
But in the
Whatever.
first couple book, or even still, Rand is still bland to me through most of this.
oh, he is, of course. No, he
I
totally
mean,
is. He's
it
boring
doesn't
for like
matter.
4 books.
Well, that's why I'm with Sean, where I was really
More than
excited that they played up his angst more because, like, I did kind of want like Anakin Skywalker.
Like
Yeah.
he just
Level
needed
Rand.
a personality. He doesn't have to look different from everyone else. He needs
The moment when
Yeah.
they were in the inn and the lady was like, "Well, you're sleeping with Matt, right?" It's like, "Oh, if I wanted a man, I could do better." Was like, great.
yeah.
I was like, go.
He needed
you.
more moments like that.
Yeah.
Except for I was like, could you? Because they've made Matt much more likable. He's moody right now because of the dagger. But let's be real, Rand. You were a real jerk to Egwene.
You know, but then later he's like, Matt's like my best friend, Egwene. Like, why would you say those things about
You
him?
never liked him, did you? You just never
Yeah,
got
right.
to know him. And I'm just like, dude.
But that was
I
really faithful to the book. That's how they are. They just bicker.
Yeah.
I kind of want, okay, I'm sorry to upset people who love Rand, but I kind of want them to make Rand like the necessary, he's needed, but no one likes him. And like everybody's like, I hate him. He's actually the worst. But also,
I
Read
don't think
further in the
that's too far
series.
off, though.
That's like the book. That really
Yeah.
feels like the book.
It ends up happening. I mean,
Yeah.
later in the series, that's kind of like where his character goes.
I mean, a lot of fans are like, I love Rand. People just don't understand Rand. And I'm like, is it? I mean, I feel like he's.
I guess you're just in the books. The characters don't like Rand.
Yeah. I will
But
say
I want to hate him as a viewer. I want like all viewers to be like, dude, this guy's the worst. But like, you have to work with him because he's like the dragon, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I kind of want because I think that makes it more compelling. If everybody has to deal, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't make it compelling at all.
Yeah.
Jess, you look really sad.
I've heard her
I'm
brain
not-
with something in our private chat.
Yeah. Do you want to? So was this Robert Jordan? What
This
he
doesn't
said?
make any sense to me because how big? No, that doesn't.
I
The
also-
Sean
The Sean Chan part is real.
I want
That's
to know
definitely what it's supposed to sound like.
what all the
Yeah,
other
Angela, you
ones
need to read
are
this off.
countries, and then one is like a specific state.
That don't make sense.
So no one can see this, so you guys have to explain what you're reacting to.
Oh,
Here, you know what? I'll put it on.
Wait, is that Robert Jordan or Rafe Judkins?
It was, I think, Robert Jordan. This is from a pretty
Jordan.
old post.
I've heard the Sean Chan one before. The rest of them I have not heard.
Well, what?
So I have
Texas?
heard that the Sean Chan are supposed to have a
Texas.
Texan accent or a Southern accent with the
I mean,
So the
drawl.
Sean Chan are like, all right, all right, all right.
It is actually like in the book they talk about the drawl a lot.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't envision it.
No, I
I
don't.
mean, fair. I mean,
I mean,
I
what
don't
are they-
envision
And
any
the
of this.
Domani, they don't sound Indian to me in my
Or
head.
even
I don't know.
just- yeah.
I would love if Michael Kramer did this.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right? That'd be hilarious.
So actually, you know what? Michael Kramer, he did the
Yeah.
Way of Kings, right? I just want to throw out that who does he always do like a southern accent for, and it drives me? Oh, just like Simple People. That's what I remember. Like I listened to like some of the I think I don't know if it's Way of Kings or the second one, but I just remember like there's like some farmer or like just some person he's like, well, I'm gonna be, and I'm like, Michael Kramer, like what's going on?
To be
man?
fair,
Like,
you do it too. Whenever
that's
you're
true, but I'm not narrating an audiobook.
that's
We're getting
true.
off topic, but
Yeah.
It is really funny, especially since Kate Redding and Michael Kramer like are together, like they're a couple. They don't confer about what accent for what character. Elaine has 2 accents, and I'm just like, you guys should compare notes.
Wait,
Well,
so
That's
where's
what I said in the 8th book that we
Yeah,
just
like-
did. I was like,
Mhm.
have they always had a British accent for this person?
I never noticed that until you guys pointed it out.
I mean, I didn't notice it till I think Stephanie pointed it out. But
Yeah.
well anyway, back to so is
we
there
gotta round up some channelers.
any
They're not supposed to be loose. Mm-mm. That's now how I
I'm
hear
from
it.
the South, and I don't want any of that in the Wheel of Time. I hate it
Please,
here.
no.
Oh, I don't think I answered the question
I
about
wanna get
watching
away
season
from
2.
this.
Jade, of all of us, I feel like you're watching it. I hope.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna watch it. I think my expectations are tempered, but I'll watch it.
Yeah, I'm totally going in with lower expectations for
Yeah.
sure.
And I don't really know what I want them to change or do. I mean, I want it to be better, but at this point, it's just like whatever happens, happens for me at least. So I'm going to try and be open-minded about the changes. Like, it's really funny because when it comes to other adaptations, I'm usually really good at separating source material from the adaptation and like appreciating them as separate things. I've always been really good at that. And like, I'm having trouble with that with this series. And I guess it's just because I love it so much. Or I think also like, I'm having trouble understanding why they're making some of these changes
Yeah.
or like, they just don't seem like good choices like we've talked about. And so I've really struggled with that. So I'm going to try and have better expectations for the next season and just try to appreciate it as a separate entity. But at the moment, I'm still struggling with that.
I think I can extend that if they're going to make all these changes, the first season is not where you're going to see payoff for the changes, right? So if they can do something really interesting with the changes in the next seasons, we've already established that it's going to be different. So hopefully that's an easier, pill to swallow. Like, oh, okay, well, we've already gone in a different direction, but if that direction ends up being cool, then all right, then I'll go with you. But if the direction ends up being not great, then I'm going to be like, why did you change it then? If the changes don't enhance it for television, then it's not a change that I feel like should be made.
That's how I felt about most of the changes. I will say that the Layla change, I was actually semi on board with because I felt like it gave, I should have talked about this earlier when we were talking about changes, but it gave like Perrin, his personality is just very careful and reluctant. And I feel like that gave like an on-screen reason for his personality to be that way. And so that was actually a change that I was okay with, but everything else I really struggled with. I don't know.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Anything else anybody wants to? I feel really bad. We were pretty harsh.
No.
I
This internet
will
is formed.
say, I think a lot of the actors did a good job with the material they
I
were
think so too.
given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I feel so bad though, because like I loved Perrin as a character for a lot of the books, and it was just I felt like he got shafted in this
Oh, yeah.
script with like nothing to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like that just like the actors I think are good. I like Rand's actor. I like Egwene. Like I like the cast, but I feel like there's just so many scenes where it's just like it's just not there.
Yeah.
I will say I saw a comment and I'm like, oh man, I agree with this. They were like, somebody needs to tell Perrin and Rand to close their mouths. And I was like, I agree with that. But you know, I'm not even gonna blame the actors because I feel like the directors at some point need to be like, cut. Okay, give us a different expression. I don't know.
Yeah.
I give the show like 6.5 out of 10. It's fine.
Oh, you're so generous.
Oh yeah,
I
what's
think I'm
everybody?
around the same 6.5. Sounds about right.
Okay.
I think that's
Definitely.
about what the ratings are for it, isn't it? It's like a 60 to like 70%, something like that.
I would give it that because I did enjoy most of the episodes, even though some of the changes were questionable. I had a pretty good time with most of them.
It would have been higher without that last episode. It could have been a 7.5.
Exactly.
I think I would have been at like a 6 without the last episode, and it dropped it to like a 5.
Another change I really struggled with. Well, we kind of talked about the love triangle, which I absolutely hated and really struggled with. But the fact that Nynaeve and Lan like went into the bedroom so early in this relationship, I was not a fan of that. I was like, what? I mean, the people from Two Rivers are supposed to be really conservative, and like that doesn't happen that fast.
And Egwene and Rand are hooking up.
I was not a fan of that either.
I actually like those changes.
That didn't bother me, really.
They aged them up a little bit, and they made it more realistic that they had a relationship, because too much of Wheel of Time feels like it's just insta-love, and then people are together.
But that's the thing,
So I
is
felt
that
like they
Rand and
actually-
Egwene, they're not supposed to have a real relationship.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be like
I didn't mind it.
we've always thought we'd end up together, but I won't say.
I
But
always interpreted like they always thought they would end up together more because everyone in the Two Rivers expected that to happen.
right.
Yeah.
And like
so
that's
like
just,
they made them really in love, or and
Right.
I have issues with it, but my issues I can't talk about because of future things
Right.
in the series. It's just at some point, I'll put it this way. You know how Min says, I see 3 beautiful women, and I'm like, so most of the women in the show, like that's kind of the vibe that I don't know. So I feel like it makes me sad because whether you like it or not, the show could have done the friendship angle a lot, because it could have, you have this incredible bond between all these people from the Two Rivers, and instead you made this love triangle, and like, you always hated Matt, like they have that in there, and I'm like, I feel like that's something that a lot of people are tired of, is this angst, and they want to see more friendships on screen, and you don't really get that very much. It turned it into like they aged up the characters, but then they made them kind of high school drama sometimes. So that bummed me out a little bit. I feel like I was going to say something completely different though, and now what were we talking about before that changed? Oh, the ratings.
We were trying to end it.
Yeah.
Jess, what's your
I
rating?
give it 5. A 5.
Fair.
I think that's
I like some parts, but overall it was just very meh.
yeah. I think if you don't,
Aggressively mediocre.
yeah, if you don't see, obviously, of course, technically 5 is a fail, right? If we're talking about like grades in school, but if I'm thinking like I'm kind of right in the middle as far as I enjoyed aspects of it, and then other things I'm like, no, over. So I think it'd be more sort of middle of the road also for me. What about you? I think Sean's a little nicer.
I think I might be a little more generous. I might say a 7 for the Sean Chan at the end, and I'll go maybe a little different from everyone. I liked it better than both seasons of The Witcher. I don't get
Sean,
The Witcher. I think it's
ooh.
like, I watch it. It does absolutely nothing for me.
Sean's
I don't
not a
know
fan.
why.
Yeah.
I'm like nothing. I feel nothing watching The Witcher.
And you know
Doesn't
what?
work for
I
everybody.
feel sorry for you. I feel
I just
sorry.
had a lot
for
more fun watching The Witcher. Like, I don't know. It was just more entertaining. I felt like too much of the Wheel of Time was like, maybe it's expectations. I don't know. But
I find the plot of The Witcher and the characters and the stuff way more interesting.
I haven't read the books though.
I don't think. I mean, Elle and I
strictly-
have
Yeah.
different experiences with
Yeah.
the books, but I don't think the books make me like the show more. So
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's definitely its own thing. I mean, it ended up not being like any of the other fantasy adaptations we have. Do you think at all that they're trying so hard to make it not like I think in some ways they wanted it to be dark like Game of Thrones. Some people involved in the show I think wanted it to be and we talked about it seems like there's differences in tone expectations from people, but do you think in their efforts to make it stand out and be its own thing while still sort of making it the new fantasy show that it sort of messed some things up?
I think so. And I don't even think
Yes.
it doesn't even feel like Game of Thrones. It just feels like they're trying to be edgy and dark at times when like right from the
The
first
story
episode.
really isn't. Yeah.
Yeah, there was so much like blood and gore in the first episode and like him axing his wife. I was just like, are we really like this is just too dark?
I think
guess,
another
for
thing
Wheel of
is
Time.
like it's, and maybe there's not this in the books either, but it's completely void of humor.
Yeah.
Like Game of Thrones has some legitimately
Yeah.
like, funny moments.
It also has really
Wheel of
witty
Time was,
dialogue and like
like,
great conversations.
Yeah, zero funny
Same with
moments.
the writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
and I
like,
think
oh.
also the books are rough with this, and I wish they could have done this with the show. Instead of doing either of these 5 could be the Dragon Reborn, we could explain more clearly why we need a Dragon Reborn, why we're in this situation. Like, there's a lot of cool lore we could have been introducing and intriguing people with. Like, why are we in this post-apocalyptic
That's why I
state?
don't feel like they read it, because even they called Luz Theron, isn't he just the dragon? And they called him the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah, I mean it's
I'm
Yeah, he's just the
confused.
first dragon. Like, and we really, I think the first book even still has more of like the dark one and why we care about the dark one. Like, and one of my complaints in the book is it's really not clear why we are doing this. Like, why is this great battle important? But like, we could have been doing that, and that's intriguing. Like, I think that could have been done.
Yeah, I honestly think the show is really confusing if you haven't read the books. Like, they don't explain anything.
Yeah.
They should have
And they have
focused
them
on
like not in the show lore things that they're like, you can watch this and learn about these things.
Yeah, I mean doing
But
that,
that doesn't
like,
make
extra
sense. You shouldn't
stuff
have to
is fine.
watch
Yeah, you shouldn't.
outside content.
I didn't
what
watch
you
any
need
of
to-
that. I just
Yeah,
seeing
but
it.
I'm just saying, like, for people, because
It
I've
should be
seen
a
it on some
prereq.
people's reviews, like, oh, this bonus. Like, no, you need to put that's for like additional things you had to cut, but that aren't like
Mm-hmm.
necessary to the story, because they could
Yeah,
have
if it's-
explained that with the
If
dark
it's
one
done
and
well,
side,
you shouldn't have to look for
Sidene.
that.
yeah,
Right.
Sidar, all of those different things. Then by the like hinting and foreshadowing all those things. So by the time we did get to episode 8, it was like, oh my gosh, just like you said earlier, Alex. Like I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to have more emotion here, and I'm really just like,
Do you think
okay.
that it was a mistake to make it I know the first 3 episodes came out at the same time, but do you think that I almost feel like if we had watched the whole thing straight through, it would have felt clunky. I think it would have highlighted
Would have
how
been worse.
pacing is.
I'm about to say,
Probably.
I needed it to be only 1 episode at a time. This was not a
Yeah.
bingeable show for me.
Yeah, I
No.
watched 4 episodes yesterday and it got kind of exhausting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because if you watched it back to back, it just like some of the stuff, I feel like they were contradicting themselves
Right,
within the show, and
That's what I'm
like
talking
parts
about,
they
like, the
cut.
editing. The editing didn't
Yeah.
make sense sometimes. Where like you'd go scene to scene, and like it just felt like scenes being one after the other, rather than like a cohesive like plot or storyline. I don't know. I don't know shit about filmmaking, so maybe I'm just making stuff up. But like when that's something that like stuck out to me was I was like, this just doesn't feel like it's like flowing very well.
One
It
thing
did
I will
not.
say is watching the second season of Witcher through is, I mean, Yennefer shows up anytime they're like, I need to go here, she's there. So it's I think, I'm sorry to keep hitting this point, but that we need to stop the 8 episode structure. I just don't think it works. We need at least 10 for these fantasy epics.
Why
I
is that
would
the
be-
thing? I hate it.
Yeah, I feel like some people brought up the budget was stretched thin because it's a traveling story and you're seeing them go to a new place all the time. And I'm like, that's fair. That's true. It is a traveling story. But I guess this is just like really unfair of me. But I wish they hadn't. This is so mean. I wish they hadn't built some of their own sets. I don't know if it was like because of COVID they had to and they couldn't film in certain locations. But we have that opening with Logain in a real, I believe that's a real castle in Spain, and it looked great. And I don't know what I'm talking about,
You
but
can
I would
clearly tell when it's like a set or when it's like
Yeah.
a
The blight.
like location.
I heard I heard the blight they had somewhere different, and then because of COVID, they had to like use that set in someone else's review, which is fine. It's like you should have changed the line for Moraine about don't touch anything. Y'all literally touching everything. It's like literally no way for them not to touch it. But the Emmons Field felt really like a set. And then when they go to, what is it, Shadar Logoth?
That one was
we talked about that before. Yeah, that was.
Can I just say when Moraine says don't touch anything, there's like a dead body, like as if Rand was gonna be like, oh yeah, let me get it.
Yeah, he was like,
what?
He's like, does she think that Rand's gonna go up and be like, I want to investigate this dead person? Like
that would be more of a map.
Yeah, but I completely agree. We need more episodes, and that's why I want animated. It doesn't have to be highly like skilled animated, but like you imagine this series.
No, I need highly.
You had like 20-minute episodes or something. Like Avatar: The Last Airbender, where you have a lot of important things. Like that show is very much like this, where we have a chosen one who has to defeat a dark thing by the end of all 3 seasons, and we spend like a lot of time getting there. And there's a lot of filler episodes that make things fun. And we don't get to have filler episodes without sacrificing the grander plot when we have this few, and it bothers me. And I want that for Witcher 2, because I want more of that.
If it's done well, people are going to watch however long it is. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. That's true.
I mean, who has ever said I want less episodes of their favorite TV show?
Exactly.
I mean, there are some shows, but not your favorite, obviously. I haven't watched Arcane. I've seen like the art style. Of course, that's high budget, but like that's what I would want. They need more money. Jeff needs to give them more money. Even if it was really animated, like I know you say this for like I don't want animated Sanderson, just me, but this could be yes, but obviously they've already started live action. But it just because with Game of Thrones is not a high magic like dragons, they have certain things, but it was more about the politics, the people, the different locations, and this is literally so much magic that it's just like the 10 million ain't enough. They need more money and more time. And I don't know who said 8 episodes is the new model, but I hate it here. I want a minimum of 12.
Yeah.
Was it Stranger Things that started that? When did we start that? Because it wasn't Game of Thrones.
Yeah, Game of Thrones was 10, right?
Was it?
It was originally 10.
Game of Thrones was 10 for 6 seasons.
Didn't
they went to like 7 and
the last season was 6 episodes. Let's not talk about it. They don't
exist. Yeah, let's not talk about that.
The first time I can remember it happening was the first season of Witcher.
See, it happened with Stranger Things, which came out before that.
But those are on Netflix. So, like, is it a Netflix?
Is it a Netflix thing that caused it? I don't know.
I don't know, because I remember, I don't know if they were like looking at other shows that had come out and trying to see the model, and maybe I don't know, but I remember with the Netflix Marvel shows, sometimes they would have a weird lag in the middle.
Like 13 episodes when you only needed maybe like 12.
Yeah, like Luke Cage, I think had a weird pacing.
Luke Cage probably like 10, really.
But like The Expanse, season 1 is because I'm just looking at it now because that's another Amazon show. They went from 10 episodes to 13 episodes, and then I think they stayed. Season 3, which obviously, I mean, the budget's not as high, I don't think, but like they did 13 episodes in season 3, and I mean, The Expanse is a long series too. But
on Sci-Fi first, when did Amazon take it over?
I don't know, but they went 10 episodes, 13, and then 10.
Yeah, because they started out on a different network. His Dark Materials has 13 episodes, 2 seasons on HBO. Yeah, I don't know. It just 8. I can see 8 working for some things, but for a high fantasy series, especially this one, it's no.
8 episodes, I think, works if you're trying to adapt a standalone story, but like you really want to flesh it out and make
8 episodes is like a mini series, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
or like season 1 of The Witcher. Yeah, or like if you're adapting The Last Wish, which is a bunch of short stories.
Yeah,
you can
that's
do
what
that.
have like Station 11.
It's effectively a mini series.
Station 11 on HBO is a mini or a limited mini series, and I think it's 8 episodes. But like an epic, you need.
Yeah,
I wonder, is Lord of the Rings going to be 8 episodes as well? Then
that's a good question.
I don't know what they're doing.
I'm scared about that.
A gigantic budget.
I'm very nervous with this adult sexy Lord of the Rings they're
Adult
trying to do.
means tits for like the first
I
3
mean,
to
I'm-
4
I'm-
episodes.
I don't-
L, your favorite.
I would really
Gratuitous
like if
nudity.
they just called it "Sexy Lord of the Rings." That would like make
Right.
Lord of the Rings After Dark.
Lord of the Sexy Times.
Coming
I'm
After
soon.
dark, I like that.
Lord of the Rings After Dark. Yes, that's exactly what we need.
Yeah, wait, do we know? Can we look it up?
I don't know if they've released it. But, I'm like, if I was Amazon, I'd be terrified right now of what's going to happen when fans get Lord of the Rings. Like,
So my computer,
people's gonna be mad.
I was typing how many episodes are in the Amazon, and my computer filled in rainforest, and I'm like, no, come on.
Episode.
It's probably only got a couple.
Never
episodes left.
ending.
I don't
mean,
see
so
anything on the
What's it supposed to
Wikipedia.
be?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
what are they just creating their
Right.
own Lord of the Rings story? I didn't even
It's
look.
the
I
stuff
didn't look at
before the books. It's
Yeah.
So this says right
The
now,
Google says 8.
yeah, it says January
Again?
2020, Amazon announced the first season would consist of 8 episodes.
Of
I
course.
don't get it.
But like, what are none of us even know what they're adapting. Like, what is?
because they're not allowed to use the Silmarillion either, right? Like, they're not allowed to use the books.
They're just
No.
setting it in Middle Earth. I feel
Wait,
like.
why are they not allowed to use this?
Somebody else has the rights to it or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
so-
a rights thing.
I don't
Who's
think
in
the
the show? I didn't
Tolkien
even
estate wanted them to do it, right?
Probably.
They have the rights to part of Middle Earth. That's all I know.
So I don't
Yeah.
get to watch Middle Earth Genesis, the creation story. What a bummer.
Yeah.
Who are these
Well,
people?
we have veered off in an interesting direction.
We have made our own feature-length film about our reactions to the Wheel of Time.
We need 6 more episodes.
I'm so ready for the comments to roll in.
Oh, I can just
Right.
ignore it. I don't get notifications, so I just run away.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I
Sarcasm.
feel like I didn't love the show for the first 4 episodes, but like Jade, each one for me was getting better. But I was like, here's the things I like, here's the things I'm not liking.
Mhm.
And I think at that point, a lot of people were in it, and then they felt so betrayed by episode 8. I saw so many people say, I was defending the show to everyone that was against it. Like, and then they're like, but now, and I'm like, that's the thing, you shouldn't attack people either way. Like, if one of you was like, I loved the show, I thought it was great, I'd be like, I didn't, but I'm glad you liked it. But I
Yeah.
wouldn't be like, you're the reason we have bad adaptations, it's because of you. And then if you hated one of
That's
you
because
hated
you're not an
our-
insane person.
I mean, we have that World Hoppers video where we argue, right? And like, it's fun, and I want people to have fun talking about this stuff.
It's okay not to agree.
Like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
so, and I'm sure there's someone doing this right now, because this is what happens whenever I have Wheel of Time videos, is someone is writing an essay that you would submit to like your high school teacher about why XYZ is done perfectly or wrong or whatever, and just stop. It's not worth your time.
No one's
Like,
gonna rate them.
It's like
Furthermore,
standardized test persuasive essay, like the prompt is like the Wheel of Time was fantastic.
do what therapists tell you to do. You can write that and then delete it. You don't have to hit send. You just don't. You're right. I'm already telling you now. You're right. I'm wrong. We're good.
Write it out and burn it.
Alex, you'll
just like
appreciate
save
this.
yourself, or just save yourself the time and just like
Tom
don't.
Segura talking about now that he has kids, he just doesn't argue with anyone. So the second someone's like, actually, he's like, you're right, I'm
Yep,
on your
yeah,
side
totally.
now.
Uh-huh.
And his mom
Gotta
like
pick your battles.
his mom
2 plus
personally-
2 does equal 5. You are correct.
Mhm.
That's because arguing with children will make you insane.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I like the first 6 episodes. Like, I think episode 4 was kind of where it peaked for me. I still liked 5 and 6, and then
Mhm.
7 and 8, I was like, "What is happening?" And
Yeah.
I was not happy at the end.
I
So
now
basically,
like
that's
the
my
theory
really
that we were just
similar.
paralleling the slog of the books. We were
Yeah,
just
I never really thought about it until Alex said that. It's funny.
Yeah. I mean, even my wife liked it probably more than I did, and she doesn't know anything about Wheel of Time. So when she had questions, I would fill in, but like half the time she'd be like, well, what's happening right here? And I'm like, I have no idea, because this didn't happen in the book.
Alex, I
Mhm.
was talking about this very thing with Sean, where or maybe I said it in the group chat too. I feel like they have taken away the opportunity for book fans to get to fill in new, because if book fans are, or excuse me, if non-readers are like, so wait, I didn't understand this part, can someone explain this to me? No one can, because they
Half
went
the
in
time I
one
was like, I
direction.
think this is what they're doing, but I don't really know. This didn't happen. And then by the like, even the finale though for her, she was like, "This kind of sucks." I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
you were
in
bummed.
terms of like bad endings, I haven't seen one that bad in a minute.
I was saying it in Voxer. Like as soon as I started watching, I was like, guys, I think this show kind of sucks. Like,
Yeah, you know, I will say Sean didn't hate it as much, but I think you said you feel like it's just back to our original question at the very beginning. Would you have rather not had an adaptation at all? After we watched that first season, Sean was like, you know, I never thought I would see this show or this story adapted. I never thought I would see the Sean Chan on screen.
yeah,
So I understand there being a nostalgia factor for a lot of people, and not saying that's like the only way you can like it or something like that. A lot of people do like it, and if you loved it and you want to say every reason why you loved it, I go for it, and I'm super glad that a lot of people seem to have at least gotten some enjoyment from it. I hope season 2 is strong. But I will say, you know how like we weirdly as the world we came together to all hate season 8 of Game of Thrones. Like it kind of brought us together.
after the
It
entire
felt
world
like-
collectively loved it for like 5 straight seasons.
I feel like there was this interesting like everybody kind of came together to be upset at the end of this season.
We
But
were
please
betrayed.
don't be mean to the people that
Because I
liked it. That's not nice.
I'm the only person here, I think, that has not watched any of that.
Oh yeah, you haven't watched Game
I'm
of
glad
Thrones,
I
right?
missed it. No.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh.
I watched
was
2
definitely one of the people
episodes
who
and
didn't.
noped out.
I didn't
was
hate it
so
as much as
good.
everyone else, but that's because I think there came a point where I'm just like, oh, they're never going to make it right anymore. Okay, so I think I tapped out like 2 seasons earlier.
It looked beautiful, and the soundtrack incredible. I often
I'm sorry,
listen
you
to
thought
it.
Daenerys on those dragons looked good? You thought that looked
No,
good?
I mean, it looked a lot
It
of the
was
things.
awful.
There's
Angela, you don't count because you don't notice
Harry
anything.
Potter
I'm
3
talking
had
about
better
like,
griffins.
Okay, but
I'm
he doesn't
thinking
notice
about-
things, but
yeah, this is the one thing you notice. So I'm taking
Right.
That's
your
how you
word
know
for
it's
this.
bad. If
I'm
I
talking
see
about-
it,
I
it's
am
horrible.
I am speaking about the scene specifically after the city has been destroyed and the one horse is running through and there's Arya and it's after I have one in mind, okay? Unacceptable.
You got the finger.
I mean, I don't know. My complaints about Game of Thrones also just span to parts of the books too. So
Don't do it.
So I will ask for the last time if we have any other things we want to express.
I'm good.
Alrighty. Thanks everybody for joining us. Whoever's here. I hope you enjoyed this rant session for 2 hours and almost 15 minutes.
if they watch on 2 times speed, it's not too bad.
It was cathartic, I think, for some people here to get to hear. I mean, maybe, yeah. We'll just leave it at that. I hope others enjoyed it. And if you didn't, I hope you enjoyed this chat at least. And we'll see all of you later. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.